We be live. Hi everyone.
Hello.
God, that never gets old. Let us know in the live chat how the audio is. We have patron questions, a lot of patron questions. Today we have 21 patron questions. By the
Oh
way,
my goodness.
I'm missing music guy's patron questions. I missed those. Where's why music guy is not adding questions anymore? Even though we're
I
getting a
think
lot more
Music Guy
questions.
doesn't add questions because he thinks that there's too many questions already. But like Music Guy,
You
you
need
have
to
the
add
best
questions. Your
questions.
Yeah, your questions make the show very interesting. I mean, not that these other questions. I mean, there are a lot. Rudrish and some other. There are some really good questions here. But anyway, let me show you how this Q&A works, okay? Because a lot of people still don't get it, okay? So on Patreon, an Atheist Republic Patreon's account, link is in the description. We make a post um, to this stream, ask us anything. Every week we post this, almost every week, and we'll make it for patrons only, okay? And then the patrons of our show, they get to post their questions under the link to the live stream, to the upcoming live stream. We post it like a day ahead of time, okay? So for example, the link to this stream, we posted it yesterday. And then what you could do is you could go under the post on Patreon and ask your questions, and then we'll spend today answering all these questions. God, this is the most questions we've got. And then if there is time at the end, we'll look at the live chat questions. But I think we're getting to a point where we're not going to be able to answer live chat questions because of the sheer number of patron questions we're getting. And then even when we get to the live chat question, we have to like give priority to our members and super chats, right? But yeah,
Because
there's
we have super chats now. Because we got
yeah,
monetized again.
we got
It's
monetized, guys.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, D is here. D also, yeah. I missed your questions on the picture. I mean, D asks her questions mostly on secular jihadists. Actually,
Well,
yeah, that's good.
Music Guy and D are saying, I use secular
Ah,
jihadists for that. Because
actually,
they're
that's
also
good.
patrons at Secular Jihadists, and
You
they
guys are
know that
amazing.
this is, the busy schedule Q&A, but they get that individualized
Right.
attention over at Secular Jihadists.
Right.
Plus,
Okay. Okay. That's
their
actually
questions
that's
are usually
smart.
more geopolitically focused, and that's really like the theme of
Secular
Secular
jihadists.
Jihadists. So,
That makes
I
sense.
I see the strategy here.
I see. Okay, now I get it. Now I get it. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Okay. All right, Suze. So we have the Patreon questions ready, starred on StreamYard. So let's start highlighting them. You be the boss on
Okay,
which.
so the first patron question is from Secular Sakai, and this was fascinating. So Secular Sakai is
Wait,
asking,
wait.
could you
Before you read the question, let me give you a summary because people might like not get what the hell this is about. So there's a cult, right? This is regarding that cult. Like, so a lot of religions are very old, and but this is a very new one, and you could see, we have documented the entire. We have the creation of it, the creation of this cult from beginning to finish, and its evolution has been fully documented. That's why it fascinates a lot of people to see how a religion could be made out of nothing. So this is, and it's referred to as the cargo cult. But yeah, go on.
Well, that's a little bit of a misnomer, but I'll get into it.
Okay.
So, the question is, could you discuss the cargo cult of John Frum in Vanuatu, which is in Papua New Guinea, I believe, and how they made a messiah out of a World War II pilot called John from America, who gave them cargo supplies. The US military had a base there, and the tribes made whole rituals out of marching, raising the American flag, and building bamboo air traffic tower structures so more planes would come. The cult still exists to this day. Did Americans unwittingly inspire a UFO religion? Well, the answer is actually no. So, this particular cargo cult is just the most recent and longest lasting example of a cargo cult. So, it's kind of one that we have in our modern contemporary time. But I was doing some research on this and I found out that cargo cults had begun essentially at the beginning of colonization and interaction with European settlers, um, like over 150 years ago, approximately. So it actually started a lot way longer ago, but we just think of it as associated with World War II, which I thought was very interesting. And so part of the reason why these cargo cults kind of came into existence, there are many different cultural and superstitious aspects to it, but one cultural aspect to it is in the culture of these islanders. If when you give a gift to someone, there's some aspect of expecting to be able to reciprocate, but be able to reciprocate even bigger. And those who cannot reciprocate in a bigger way are seen as lesser men, right? So when interacting with European settlers, they seemingly had endless supplies of gifts and goods to give, and the islanders didn't. So they came to think of themselves, because of their, already held cultural beliefs, as like less than. And
So the
so
Europeans were oppressing them by giving them better gifts.
kind of.
They were being
There were
humiliated by
yeah,
showering them with gifts.
there were
Okay, go on.
other very important cultural aspects of this as well that I can't, recall and tell you, but I just know that it's much more intricate than what I just said, so keep that in mind. But that's one very important aspect of it. And so, however, they came to feel, like you said, kind of humiliated by this, and they wanted to figure out a way where they could resume, like, this is in reaction to colonialism, resume a prosperous and identity, right? Or so not an identity that is in reaction, reflected as inferior because of this gift giving culture. And so they started these cargo cults because they never saw how the Europeans made these goods. They just appear,
This
and they
comes
just
from the
have the
sky.
they just have these things. And I mean,
Yeah.
even before planes, they had them on ships, but they never
Magic.
saw them. They never saw how they were manufactured. So they thought that if they did the things behaviors that they observed these settlers doing, that is how you produce these goods. You magically produce these goods. And so this is translated then into World War II, and you see similar aspects. They never see how these goods are manufactured and produced. So they think that the way that it is produced is through enacting these behaviors of takeoff and drop off, of navigating satellites, of air traffic control. And that's how you
And
create
shows
these
up in the
goods.
sky, like the goods are showed up in shows up from the sky. If you do these motions, it
If
just
you
shows
wave
up.
American flags, if you march
It
like
makes sense though.
soldiers. Yeah, so they observe these behaviors. They think instead of that this is maybe part of regimented behavior, that this is actually the ritual that you need to produce the goods. So in a way, it kind of makes logical sense.
I was joking, but okay.
Well,
Right. Yeah.
you have to really think about it from the perspective of having no knowledge of these things, right?
Right.
So just you're trying to observe the things in your environment, and if you have no background information because no one told you about what's going on behind the scenes, you can kind of see how they would come to these conclusions. And so then the most recent iteration that still survives to this day is the John Frum example. Now, I watched a very clip from a documentary that came out about how these organizations are led by cult leaders. And there's been contention because, like, kind of the big last survivor prophet or cult leader of the John Frum cult got kicked out of his village. There were murder conspiracies against him. He had to go form his own outcast village of people who still believe in the old John Frum way. And then now there's a new cult with a new prophet who's much more popular, and he is like a legit prophet. And he, kicked
We
out the
have
old
those.
leader, and he's like syncretized the John Frum ideas with Christianity. So they're trying to make it about Christianity. And then there's also subcults that worshipped the Duke of Edinburgh. Lots of stuff like that. It's absolutely fascinating. But what do you think about this, Armin? Because then, because of kind of this phenomenon, there's this phrase called cargo cult science, which is about kind of referring to mistaking the processes for the cause. So you're kind of like enacting the ritual of science, but not actually doing it. What do you think?
I don't know much about it. I just think that this is a window into the human psyche and to figure out how religions are made. I think it's just like a. I think it's a treasure trove of for knowledge for people who want to understand how these things come about. But I haven't looked into that, so I don't know what the conclusions would be. I just know this must be a great opportunity, must have been a huge opportunity for a whole bunch of researchers who would like to study these things. But Suze, we do need to spend less time on each question because we have so much questions today, and if we want to dedicate this much time to each one of them, we're going to be here forever. But we did
Okay.
get a super chat. We did get a super chat. We want to highlight that.
Oh, wait. Let's highlight the super chat.
I
Mustafa gave us $2 because he likes my earrings. Oh, thank you. Thank you,
All
Mustafa.
right.
Um,
All right. Thank you for the
I
super
wanted to
chat.
show pictures of the cargo cult, but my computer won't let me share my screen right now because they constructed whole structures that look like satellites that are huge, like out of sticks. It's insane. Like that
Yes,
itself is an
and
accomplishment. It doesn't do anything, but it's extravagant and massive.
they also haven't they also made planes out of sticks? Like not
Hmm.
and
And
yeah,
they make like binoculars. It's
right,
so
right, right.
interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of cute. Um, is that the meaning? I don't know.
Some people
I,
would
I,
definitely find that pejorative.
but I find okay, but it's cute. I don't know what to do. Okay, sue me. Uh, just what do I do? These are my feelings. How could my feelings be wrong? I can't control my feelings. Um.
Okay. So
All right.
next patron question is from um Mario Lise 1000, who is a recent new patron. Thank you, Mario Lise. Um, so
Highlight it.
wait, where did it go? Oh, this is very interesting to me. Hypothetically, this is controversial. If one side could win the Yemeni civil war at the snap of a finger, who would you want it to be? Remember, you have to pick just one, and it has to be either the Houthis or the Saudis. And if you refuse to choose one, then the war keeps going, resulting in more deaths. So, what do you choose?
Oh my God, this is an amazing question. This is some real utilitarian cost benefit analysis. Um, all right, so what would be the consequences? Do you want to answer first or do you want me to answer first?
Well, it's difficult because so there's the Houthis, and then there's the previous like Yemeni government that's in exile in Saudi Arabia. So that wasn't included in this question, or is that included as the Saudis
No,
since they're
no, just
report?
Houthis. Well, yeah. Well, yeah, that would be aligned with the Saudis. Okay, I would say the Houthis winning
Mm-hmm.
because of
No,
the
I would
precedents
agree.
being because of what it means if Saudi wins, that means that this method it will encourage more of such action. You know what I mean? I mean, what the Houthis you would say like, well, the Houthis will also encourage that. Yeah, true, but the Houthis we already have that. Like, what are they? The Houthis are a whole bunch of um, radical local groups that are have very horrible tactics and horrible beliefs, but we that is always we have that everywhere. I mean, that's not going to disappear, right? They're not, but the Saudis just attacking another country. This we're talking about an actions of a state rather than an actions of a radical group. That the things that the Saudi are doing, if that becomes normalized, if that becomes accepted, if that becomes part of the international norm, minded like what the Saudis are doing is, and we're people are not reacting to as much as they should be, is basically the same thing that we are against Putin for, right? Like everybody's saying, like, oh my God, Putin is crushing international norms, not respecting borders, this and that, bombing civilians. Well, technically, the Saudis have been doing this for the past, I don't know, how many years has it been now? 7 years? How,
Yeah, since 2015. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and not only it hasn't been condemned, it has been supported by Western European countries and by United States of America, right? So if that works and this all these countries all of a sudden not continue supporting Saudi Arabia with funds and ammunitions and everything, then it's a green light that this is okay. And it also it's makes United States and Western European countries stance against Putin a lot weaker, right? Like you want these countries to be, you want the international norms that has made the world much more peaceful place. You want that to work, but these countries that are supposed to be defending it look like hypocrites when they are defending a country like Saudi Arabia. And so this whole project has to it should fail. It should fail miserably. Okay. So, as bad as the Houthis are, as disgusting as their uh, beliefs are, okay, and as bad as inhumane as their tactics are, I think the precedent that would be set from their winning is not as, the consequences for that is not as big as the Saudis winning. You know, if the Houthis win, we have another radical group winning. Well, we have had that. We have had Hezbollah winning battles. We have had Hamas winning battles. We have had, I don't know, Daesh winning battles here and there, right? But we have, if Saudi Arabia wins, we had a state backed by the international order of, backed by the most powerful countries in the world, being responsible for the greatest humanitarian crisis of all time, and then coming out victorious and with no consequences at the end. The precedent that would be set for that, if that would be devastating for what becomes normalized after that, if that's the case. So I would say the
So
Houthis winning.
I would say the Houthis as well. We both listened to a political and geopolitical commentator named the More Freedom Foundation on YouTube. He's very interesting to listen to. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, but he made me think about the situation in a different way, where people were talking about the contentions with supporting Ukraine with the presence of the Azov battalion and the disgusting beliefs that they hold, and how this makes them feel conflicted in supporting the Ukrainian military in certain ways. And he was saying the Ukrainians are an indigenous force, like defending from an invasion. Like it, I will always be on the side of people in that situation, even if they have disgusting beliefs, which I will go out of my way to criticize anyways, which is the same way that he feels about the Houthis. Like they are an indigenous population trying to defend themselves against external intervention and invasion and exploitation. And so yeah, like we hate the beliefs, but they are fighting for a right to self-determination.
I don't
But
agree with that, by the way. Right.
Okay. When it comes to the Houthis, though, if they did win, it's very interesting to think about the implications of Iran having such a strong foothold right below Saudi Arabia on the Gulf. So that would have major implications as well.
Yeah, I'm saying you're completely right. The Houthis winning would be devastating in so many ways. We're just comparing it to all the devastations from Saudis winning. Like that's a very good point. Like I hope nobody thinks I'm like going, yay, Houthis. Definitely not. Definitely not. I'm just like, it's all horrible. I'm just thinking the Saudis winning it's just more horrible. But with regards to that indigenous thing, first of all, the Houthis don't represent Yemen. Okay, all of Yemen. Okay, first that's okay. Second of all, just because you're indigenous, that doesn't mean you are in the right. You could be. I mean, for example, the mullahs in Iran, they're indigenous, right? And I'm pretty sure
I agree. I guess
if there's a foreign force helping the Iranian people to get rid of the mullahs, okay, I would be and the mullahs are indigenous and the foreign force is foreign, I would be supporting the foreign force in that fight. You know what I mean? I would like, but I see your point. Like, I'm not trying to. That's your point is something that a lot of people may bring up. So it's not like baseless. I see it. I see why some people make that point, but I just personally don't agree with it.
It's not even an argument that I am uncritically adopting, because I'm actually very sensitive to the way, because of my past of leftism and like radical leftism and stuff. I really dislike the way that people just slap the label indigenous on something and expect it to forgive all sins and overlook everything. So I actually don't like when he uses that commentator uses the language in that way. But what I'm trying to get at is this idea of, these are the people who, this is their land, this is where they're from, and they are trying to defend it against foreign invasion and intervention. Like, I do have a baseline sympathy for that, even if I hate everything else about them. Does that make sense?
But to me, this seems that they're also invading Yemen from other Yemenis. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
it's basically it's internal imperialism, right? Basically, I don't see. Okay, so if a foreign force comes and oppresses the people, okay, and takes their land away from them, and and I don't know, takes. I don't see that as. To me, that is not more evil than a group internally doing that to its people. I don't see morally why it makes much of a difference if you have an internal group of people all of a sudden being really crappy for the rest of the people there, right? To me, morally, that's equivalent to a foreign force doing the same thing to the people. I think this is a very lefty thing to see the difference, to consider these different. To me, harm is harm, whether if it's coming from outside or if it's coming from the inside. I don't see morally, I don't see the difference between them. I don't think you
I
have
think
any.
that's too much of a blanket statement. I think it's highly dependent and highly variable.
That's what I'm saying. It's a dependent, but the dependency is not whether you're depending on many things, but it doesn't include whether you're doing that from the inside or from the outside. That's not a factor. If you're harming people, I don't think you have a higher right, or you have you're more moral from harming people because while sharing your country with them. I don't think all of a sudden you're less moral because you're harming people while not sharing a country with them. You know what I mean? That's something to think about. It's not easy to. Oh, we got more.
These are very tough questions. Oh my gosh! Wait, we just got a super chat.
We got 2 super chats that we need to add.
Saying, Secular Sakai is saying a no longer manual super chat, announcing that they just did make a manual super chat of $10 donation to the Atheist Republic legal campaign, legal fund.
Oh my God.
Well, thank you very much, Secular Sakai.
So for people who don't know, we have a GoFundMe link in the description that covers our legal battles against Hindutva who are coming after us legally in different ways. So thank you so much, Secular Sakai, for that. But also we got our weekly Christian donation from Bread of Life. Bread of Life is proving to us that we are all, immoral by showing us how charitable he is, even to atheists, to sinners. So, like, this is a good advertisement of like Christianity. Keep doing that. Bread of Life, if we keep doing these donations, we might eventually have to become Christian. Okay, so
they're weekly tithe.
No problems. Yes. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat from Bread of Life. Okay.
Oh, they say that they're a lover of Atheist Republic. Oh, well, thank you. That's so sweet.
It's because we're sinners. Christians are supposed to love the sinners. I think so.
You're not wrong.
Thank you, Brother Blue.
Okay. So next question is a quick question from Deborah. Well, first of all, thank you, Deborah, for being a patron. I didn't know that Deborah was a patron because Deborah is one of our longest and best Atheist Republic volunteers.
Yeah.
So shouts out to her. Deborah is asking, no one seems to know the answer to this question. So I hope Susanna and Armin do. Is Atheist Day on March 23rd or April 1st? I've seen memes and articles specifying either date, but why are there two dates? And which one is the correct International Atheist Day? Well, Armin, as one of the founding minds behind International Atheist Day, I will, leave it to you to take it away.
So April 1st is Atheist Day according to Christians who want to say that atheists are fools. So making April 1st Atheist Day is an attempt by Christians to basically mock atheists, because there is a biblical verse saying that the fool says in his heart that there is no God. So they're using April. So April 1st is April Fools, and they were like, well, since April 1st is April Fools, Christians have also said, well, that's atheists are fools, so that's Atheist Day, right? So we don't agree with that. We don't want to make April Fools Atheist Day, and we think March 23rd should be the Atheist Day, right? And we have been very successful at making more and more places recognize March 23rd as Atheist Day, right? In fact, let me use this as an opportunity to suggest to everybody to, if you go on Google and search Atheist Day, what you see, oh my God, it actually now shows up. The first one is March 23rd.
No way.
It got
Let me
fixed.
try.
For me,
Are you serious?
yeah, it used to be the first one was March
Oh my
20.
God.
How did it get fixed?
Wait, show your screen.
Okay.
So, guys, when you used to Google Atheist Day, the first thing that would show up was a Google result from nationaltoday.com, and nationaltoday.com would say it was April 1st. Even on this previous Atheist Day, just like last week, it said April 1st. But now it has been officially updated to March 23rd. Armin,
guys, did it.
We did it.
We did it, guys. So if you search for Atheist Day on Google, the first thing that showed up used to be April 1st. We asked everybody to go and contact them and tell them that this is discriminatory towards atheists because they're calling us fools by saying April 1st. And now when you search Atheist Day on Google, the first thing that shows up is March 23rd. The second is March 23rd. That's good. The third is 23rd. Okay, so this website is still April 1st, but the top ones, 23rd. Yeah, 23rd. Okay, Quora officially recognizes the 23rd. So only this result is showing April 1st, but the top result shows March 23rd. Guys, we did it. We did it. We fixed it. Good job for the people that contacted. Like, I didn't know it would get fixed this fast.
Because when you were on your Persian channel, you did a show for Atheist Day and you talked about that issue. And I think you asked the audience to email them, and maybe they did, and that made the difference. Holy cow. Mustafa is saying, that's actually my birthday. I'm going to show my parents to piss them off.
Guys, I don't know how this is really good. The two main websites that show up on the top two main websites that show up on Google. One of them is nationalday.com, and the second one is dayoftheyear.com. These are usually the first two websites, and they both recognize March 23rd as Atheist Day. So it's official. And also, Bread of Life just gave us another super chat, $10 super. Why, Bread of Life? You better be rich or something, because your super chats are very generous. Thank you.
Bread of Life is demonstrating how to be the best atheist ally. But also, one of the points of Atheist Day is that you don't have to be an atheist to celebrate Atheist Day. You can be a religious person who just thinks that it's not okay that atheists are treated or ostracized or shunned for their non-belief. And you just say hey, be nice.
Yeah, we
Bread of Life is being very nice.
Very nice, too nice. We actually encourage religious people to go to an Atheist Day on Atheist Day and tell them Happy Atheist Day, so that they know that they're accepted as atheists, right? All right, cool. Because if you say happy atheist day on April 1st to somebody, then you're calling them a fool. Okay. But if you say happy atheist day on March 23rd to somebody, you recognize them, then you accept them as even though you're not an atheist, you accept them as atheists. All right.
So thank you for
Okay,
asking
cool.
that question, Deb. Excellent question. And we just discovered very good news.
Yeah, we just discovered live on air here with you guys that this has been like officially it's been recognized as March 23rd. This is amazing. We should make a news item out of this for for not this news that coming, but the one after that, like March 23rd is now. Yeah, I think we could like
Okay. So next question is from Rudresh. Rudresh is asking, why in the medieval ages were theft/adultery bigger crimes than murder? In Viking law, stealing was banned, but you can fight and kill someone to take his stuff. Similarly, why is it haram to have consensual sex with someone else's wife, but halal to kill a man and then RAPE his wife? I'm not going to say the full R word because YouTube is very sensitive and we just got monetized.
Okay, I don't know about if you're describing the medieval ages stuff accurately, but I know the Islamic one is not as accurate, right? So I'm gonna do the Islamic one first. Why is it haram to have consensual sex with someone else's wife? Well, I mean, what do you think? Okay, so obviously in Islamic law, like someone's wife is their property. You can't just go and use someone else's property, right? But halal to kill the man. It's not halal to kill around. Like, okay, so see, I'm
It's in
assuming that you're
war
just I'm assuming
from
that your description of
non-Muslims.
what is I'm assuming that what you're describing as medieval laws is inaccurate. Well, might be inaccurate because the part that is about Islam that I know more, is inaccurate. So I don't know how accurate you're being with medieval ages laws, right? Islam doesn't allow you to just randomly show up to somebody and kill them and take their wife, right? Like you have to. Are you in a battle? Like are they the enemies of Allah? Are they waging war against Muslims? Like there's some specific. I mean, I'm not endorsing it. I'm not saying like, oh, it's okay. But I'm just saying it's not just like, oh, I like your wife, then like stabby, but now your wife is mine. It doesn't work like that, right? And also, if you do, I mean, again, I'm not defending any of this. I hope people understand, okay? But there's some structure to this. You can't just be like, I killed this man in war, so his wife is mine. Okay, so there will be booties. There will be like women that are captured, and other, and then like there will be decision. Like there will be somebody that are coming like, okay, this is yours. This is yours. The prophet seems to like this one so much, so I know she's beautiful, but I'm sorry, this goes to the prophet, right? So it's not like I killed this man, so his wife is obviously mine. Like there's some structures there's a decision making process. Okay, even though you might have killed the man, you might not get the wife because the wife is so pretty that the general wants her. Okay, so it's not like you might just get like his shield or his sword. Okay, that's my so it doesn't work like that. But we got 2 super chat. So, by the way, I don't know if Susanna, do you know about the medieval stuff? Anything about the medieval?
I know nothing about medieval law. I mean, rule of law is such a diffuse concept at that age, right? Or during that period of time, or it still is in many parts of the world. So I don't think there was a singular. There was maybe a code, but how consistently it was enforced and the geographical variety must have been vast.
Okay, so Rudish in the live chat is saying, not saying it's allowed, but during wars. But okay, I mean, Rudish, if you look at these laws, they all make. I think you're looking at it from you're looking at these rules from a modern perspective, and you want them to make moral sense. Okay, but if you actually think about it more, if it makes economic sense or not, or military sense or strategic sense, then a lot of these rules make a lot more sense, right? I mean, if you are going into battle, right, you want your soldiers to be excited about booties, right? Like you want them to be, you want to be on high morale, like the chances of them winning, if there's anything they could get, the thing, you know the booties from war will encourage them to fight a lot better. So obviously that's the reason why the spoils of war are constantly advertised to your fighters, right? So from that perspective, it makes strategic sense. Does that make
I'm
sense?
so childish. I'm like, did you say booty?
Yeah.
I too like booty.
You do, like, I know Susie likes. Me too, me too. Who doesn't like booty? Um,
Haters, people without taste. No. Um,
Wow, are we getting
so
more patron questions while we're doing the
we are
stream?
getting more patron questions as we
Oh,
go.
okay.
I'm like overwhelmed. Um,
Okay. All right, that's good.
okay.
That's good.
So let's go to another question from Mario Lise, who asked a lot of questions this week. But they're a brand new patron. I understand. Mario Lise 1000 is asking, do you think Taiwan is in imminent danger of a Chinese invasion? Do you think the Russian invasion has correlated to any Chinese plans to take over Taiwan? So my immediate reaction is they are,
The
they're smart people. They've seen how the world has united together to be like, oh, hell no, we're not tolerating this. They're smarter than that. Now, however, the only thing that might the difference between them and Russia is how much they are entangled in the world's economy, more so than Russia. So they have more ability to go ahead with doing this kind of action because other people, like the whole world, is so dependent on them. Whereas with Russia, it's like more focused on like Europe, Germany in particular, with 55% of their energy coming from Russia. So
I think
they
the
can maybe
opposite,
bank on
because,
that more.
well, I mean, okay, so I think because China is more entangled with the world economy, they would have less of an appetite to screw around with the world order. You know what I mean? They're so invested in it. You know what I mean? Like Russia is like a cornered in a, is like, feels like I am out of the club, right? Like this is like lashing out against, they have a lot less to lose. Okay, China is like, has is so in, its trade is so interconnected with the rest of the planet. I just think they would not, and they're so invested in the rest of the world succeeding. I mean, on the face of it, it looks like, I don't know, it's China versus the rest of the world. But once you take a look at where Chinese money comes from, China is so much interested in the rest of the world succeeding. Do you know what I mean? Because that's their customer, right? There's like, and they cannot go. I mean, they have this wolf warrior diplomacy on the face of it, but in the background, they're like the second biggest trade partner of the United States. They're deeply connected with trade with Europe. They cannot go to war economically or let alone militarily with the rest of the world. They cannot. They don't have an appetite for that, right? And I
But
think what they've seen in Ukraine is going to reduce that appetite, because I think China and Russia had this mentality that the world liberal order is in the decline and the resolve is very low and they are not united, and they are weak and you have to hit hard now when they're weak. But China is like holding, looking back right now, like, oh my god, these people are serious. Okay,
yeah,
so like these people, when it comes to threatening the world order, seems like these countries actually get united, right? In fact, by the way, this is my. I don't know if this is any of this true. I'm just guessing. Okay, but if you want to judge based on what happened, China doesn't even have enough balls right now to defend Russia, let alone go on full on aggressive mode. You know what I mean? Like, so when China saw the Western plus Japan and Taiwan, Japan and South Korea resolve, they weren't like, oh my god, this is serious. Okay, like these people be serious. So they were like, yeah, go Russia, go Russia. And they were like, we're not supporting Russia. Like, oh, we're just here as, like, at first, like they were ready to support them, and now they're like, yeah, Russia who? new phone, who this, right? So they're not supporting Russia as aggressively as they thought they would, because they see Russia's performance be embarrassing and the rest of the world very united. I hope the West doesn't screw. The West has a habit of like screwing, like not taking advantage of all this. Support. They screwed it up after World War I. They screwed it up after the Cold War. They screwed it up after 9/11. The only time they didn't screw it up, it was after World War II, right? But so they might screw it up again right now with Ukraine. Um, but I think China might like have less of an appetite to be aggressive, unless they're insane, unless the CCP, not China, CCP is insane and they're getting all the wrong, unless like what you have with CCP right now is the same kind of Putin isolation mindset, where you're not getting all the correct information, where they're feeding you all the things you want to hear and all the correct information. I don't think China has been suffers from that. I think China has,
Well, they
they
definitely
have
do to
better
some
from.
degree. They
Yeah,
definitely
okay, I
do,
don't.
because there
Mm,
isn't the same way that we have upward accountability because of face saving culture. Like
right, you're
they
right.
can't they can't
Yes,
yeah.
you can see that with the lockdowns right now in China, right? They
Well,
refuse to
disaster
accept. They refuse to like, even though they know that this is the wrong way to do, but they have to save face and go full on in because they committed to it, right? Um, yeah, but go on. Sorry, you were saying something.
people have said that these are similar reasons why there was huge issues with radiation levels coming out of a nuclear power plant, and the only reason why the world learned about it was because of French whistleblowers, because
Right.
internally they can't be open about the problems and the differences. They can't air their dirty laundry because they have to show the extent to which this can be attributed to say face saving culture could be debated, but I think that's an interesting thing to consider.
Okay,
Um,
my guess is that my guess, and this is like so like I'm ready to change that opinion like tomorrow, I suppose. Right? Like this is not very strong assumption. Okay, my assumption is that if China is looking into ever get militarily involved in doing anything like that, they're not looking at it in the next few years. Like I'm thinking like maybe they're preparing for something in 10 years or 20 years. Like, and they're like taking notes, like they're looking at Ukraine and taking like but I think like I don't think I don't think they're looking at doing it in the short term, but I could be so wrong about this
yeah,
because
but I
nobody
think you
saw Putin
misunderstood my
attacking.
point, because we're
Yep.
both talking about the global economic entanglement, right, and dependency. And so you're talking about it as a reason why they would never do it because they're so dependent. I'm saying the flip side of that coin is that because the world is so entangled, we could not cut China off as easily as we cut off Russia. So therefore, they have
That's
more of an ability to go
mm,
forward with an action like that because they know that we can't cut them off in the same way with the same ease.
okay, true. However, what they can do is more tariffs, right? But not to the extent of full on sanctions like they do on Russia. Okay. So, what China could look forward to if they do something like that is not like a full on isolation, because the world doesn't have an appetite for that. But the world could say, like, oh, we're going to cut this, we're going to cut this industry or that industry, we're going to close these banks or those banks. So, it won't be as aggressive as against Russia, but it will still be aggressive enough for China not to want that to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, the world would not be. Yeah, the world will go. The economy of the entire world will be devastated if you ever have sanctions against China to the extent that you have for Russia. So you will not have that. But the West has shown that it could still hurt China. Like it could still be united into making some measures. I mean, like for example, just the recent deal that they did with Australia and United Kingdom and United States over the submarines, right? You can see like they're like, don't the West is like, don't mess with us. We have big guns and we have bigger economies, right? And you might think like, oh, these liberals, they're like with their pronouns and all that, with their liberal mindset, and they're weak and pathetic. But look at our submarines right in your backyard, right? And like, look at how united we were when it came to taking a stance against Russia. Obviously, we're not going to take as an aggressive stance against you, because you'll be bigger and we need you, but we still can bite, right? Yeah. So I think the Western resolve has been shown to be strong. Let's
It
just hope
remind-
in the next few years they don't screw up with that. Yeah, go on.
Oh no, it just reminds me of that meme of the Russian tanks like exploded and falling apart versus the United States pink trans they them tanks
Right.
like coming in strong.
Yeah, we got a whole
um,
bunch of super chats, by the way. I don't know why people are being so generous today. Thank you so much for that.
I know it's
um
incredible.
let's go through I starred them all, so do you want to highlight them one by one, starting with
Oh
Gage?
my goodness. Well, Secular Sakai gave us $2 and is saying $40 to GoFundMe. Someone should
Wow.
one up me. Trying to get almost a bidding war started. Dang, Secular Sakai. That's so generous of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so I'll go through the comments first, and then there was one super chat question that I want to address. So Gasian American is commenting on our last question about Taiwan and China, saying, "Nope, it's for show, make China great again, etc." I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to as it's a show. Like, do you mean their aggression towards Taiwan for a domestic audience, the Make China Great Again audience domestically? That I think that's what you're referring to, and if that does make sense, that falls in line with their rule for warrior diplomacy internationally. Gasian American is also saying the CCP might be able to get Russia Far East back. Oh wow, yeah,
Russia Far
Russia.
East back? What do you mean?
I'm not exactly sure what they mean, but maybe the dependency of Russia on China at this point will people are saying turn Russia into a client state of China, in which case Iran would be the client state of a client state, which is a bad position to be in.
Yeah. It's like a human centipede situation.
What did we call it a few weeks ago? Like a bitch's bitch.
Yeah.
Aluza Akbar is saying, Inshallah, your monetization has returned. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Aluza Akbar. And then Secular Sakai is saying, this is a super chat. Thank you for the $2 super chat with a giant wealth of emojis.
We got it we have No Name also giving us a super chat.
Yes. So this is the one I wanted to address. So No Name gave us a bunch of Swedish krona, saying, Susanna, after you were de-radicalized, how long did it take for you to open up about your past? I've been through a similar past and have now had 2 years of guilt, regret, and fear fueling isolation and hopelessness. Well, I'm really sorry to hear about your experience and what you've been struggling with. I mean, I can definitely relate to it. Honestly, I probably opened up and went public like a lot sooner than I should have, like within less than a year, within the span of months. And it was really difficult for me emotionally. My therapist can attest to that. I had literal like phobias. I had like phobias of being doxxed. I had phobias of state surveillance. I had phobias of other people surveilling me. People that I used to associate with, are known to, be with people who will run up and assault people. So I was also worried about my physical safety because people knew where I lived at the time. Luckily, none of that happened. I was sent cease and desist letters, which is its own hilarious thing. But what was really difficult for me was losing relationships with people who I consider to be my family. I still have dreams about them to this day. So very, very deeply isolated. That was very, very difficult for me. I think I also felt some aspect of guilt, but I didn't feel guilt so much as I felt stupid and I felt embarrassed for what I was involved in and what I was supported, or how little I did to consider my beliefs. But Armin said something once on a Secular Jihadists episode before I even knew him, that I like literally clipped out and saved, and I would watch to remind myself this, where I'm paraphrasing, but you're basically saying what makes a difference in a person is not the beliefs that you have, but the willingness to change your mind. Because there are so few people in the world, or not enough, who are willing to change their mind and say, I was wrong. I changed my mind. And that's what you should celebrate about yourself. Not be embarrassed that you once held a belief that you now think is stupid, because we all do. Every single one of us does in some degree. And then hopefully when we realize that we believe something wrong, we change our mind, because a lot of people don't. And so you should celebrate that about yourself instead of getting down on yourself for the past. And I think, I hope, you can find some people who are better reflect your beliefs now. So that's one reason why I feel so at home at Atheist Republic with our community here, is because here, changing our mind or criticizing our own beliefs or internal processes of how we go about establishing a belief is openly criticized and discussed. And it's celebrated when we say, I was wrong. And that is a sign, based on psychology of cults that I've read, of a growth-based community, of a creativity-based community who encourages people to change their mind, and that there's no consequences for leaving. So these are aspects about this community that I really admire and has been really fruitful for me personally, that it's okay to demonstrate growth away from how you previously felt in the past. So I hope that helped. I definitely relate. And if you're on Instagram, my Instagram is in the link in the description below. Like, you can reach out to me there and we can talk about it. Or maybe join the Atheist Republic Discord. And there are, a lot of other people that reflect these kinds of values that I found to be very constructive in making me feel better about myself, and also establishing better ways of community and establishing belief.
Brother of Life saying thanks for sharing, Susanna. And Secular Sakai saying good and thoughtful answer, Susanna. That's nice.
Oh, thank you.
God. We got another super chat, but go on.
Oh my God. So let's go to another patron question.
Wait.
First.
We have to, let's do if we don't do the super chats, we're gonna lose them.
Oh, P is here. I haven't seen P in a while. Good to see you. 150 of a currency I don't know. I think it's Malaysian.
Malaysian. Yes, it's Malaysian.
Saying, here's Makali's zakat for Atheist Republic Legal Fund. That's hilarious. Any thoughts on the recent Myth Vision podcast, Dr. Robert Price fallout? Thanks. #Simp for Susanna. Well, thank you for the simping, and also thank you for your zakat to Goddess Makali. In terms of the Myth Vision controversy, I have no idea what happened.
Yeah, what happened? Now I'm curious. Wait, somebody
did someone say drama? What's going on?
Yeah, Myth Vision podcast, Dr. Price follow. Okay, somebody look. If this is newsworthy, we might actually cover it in the next week.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but thank you for. Okay, can you take your notes, so that we to see, maybe we should run an article on it on our page. Yeah.
Yes, we can. On our website, yeah. Did someone say drama alert? Because this is. I'm gonna get to investigating.
Oh, we got another super chat here by Asian American.
Oh, I think referring to the comment about the Far East Russia. Thank you for $5. Saying everything south of the Amur River used to be the Qing Dynasty. Interesting. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you for clarifying.
Wow, we're getting super chats for getting educated. Like, not even a question, a comment. Thank you so much, Asian American. That's very sweet. Thank you. All right. Yes.
So let's go to another question from Secular Sakai, patron question, asking, Botswana is currently the African nation with the largest percentage of irreligious citizens at 20%. That's quite large. Though not perfect, the country is more stable, has a better economy, and experiences less conflict than its neighbors. They also just legalized gay marriage. Could the country's success partially be due to the influence of its population, meaning secular population, or do you think the large non-theist population is instead a byproduct of its success, or a little of both? Well, this was hilarious to me because Daniel Hakikaju, in his infamous or famous debate with Har Sultan, brought forward this argument that he thought was such a slam dunk that he gave it a name. It's called the Botswana question, as an example of a country that is so liberalized, it is so irreligious, it has gay marriage, and yet its GDP is so low. Like, look, it's not as, this isn't as good as you make it out to be. Why isn't Botswana prospering? Blah, yeah. But as you're saying, relatively, it actually is doing quite well. So, Armin,
Yeah,
you did a
relatively
lot of research on this.
Yeah, we actually looked at the research to be able to respond to the claims by Daniel Hegaju, and it seems like the research suggests that your last assumption is correct. A little bit of both, right? So better, like, by the way, a lot of people don't understand that finding examples that contradicts this is not research, because there will always be examples that is not the norm, right? You can't just be like, well, this country is not working out. Boy, Qatar has like a high GDP per capita, but they don't have
Daniel,
democracy.
That's what we
Yep.
call cherry picking, Daniel.
That is anecdotal evidence, right? You can't just go like zoom in on a country and be like, your argument is disproven because here's an example that doesn't follow your. You're just looking at general norms. You're looking at averages, and also not just correlation, but also correlations that you could prove that actually um, you could come up with a conclusion that also suggests causation, right? But basically what the research seems to suggest is that better human rights, okay, and by human rights we're talking about both individual rights and social rights and property rights, right? And the good thing is that the study had separated the types of rights and the effect of these rights on the economy, okay? And it seems like better economy actually has a positive effect on human rights, and better human rights has a positive effect on the economy. So it is a little bit of both, okay? However, this is what the study suggests. We don't know if in Botswana the reasons might be different, okay, because the factors are huge. The amount of things that have an effect on human rights are enormous, and the amount of things that have an effect on economy are enormous, okay. But in the studies that has made an attempt to control for external factors, it seems to suggest that better human rights is good for the economy and good economy is better for human rights. But just because that seems to be the conclusion, you can't come out and say that, okay, this is what's happening in Botswana, okay? Even if that's the case most of the time, maybe the reasons for Botswana might be different, okay? But that's what the studies seem to suggest. Yeah. We got another
This person with a name that I cannot read is saying that, very good point. Even if Botswana is a failed state and its population is 100% atheist, what does that have to do with what does that have to do with atheism?
Okay, but okay, so that would your complaint would have been correct if you had suggested that if the question was, is atheism true because it has a positive effect? Okay, it has a lot to do with atheism. You could okay, so there's two separate questions. Okay, even if a failed state full of 100% atheists doesn't mean that atheism is incorrect. Okay, so even if atheism will lead to failed states everywhere, and even if all atheists were evil people all the time, okay, that would still not mean that there's a God. That would still not mean that the answer, whether there's a God, do you believe in God? The answer that being no, that still could be the best answer. Okay, so that's a separate thing. Okay, but but the belief, the lack of belief in God has effects on norms, on people's behavior beyond just atheism. So I agree that atheism is nothing but a lack of belief in God, but you can't deny that a lack of belief in God does not have effect beyond just a lack of belief in God, right? You are taking away one of the world's major superstitions, one of the world's major beliefs and falsehoods away from a society. I would suspect if you could control for all external factors, believing in less falsehood would have a net positive outcome. So it does have a relationship. So you cannot be like, again, I don't know exactly how what that relationship manifests itself. I suspect being able to measure that is almost impossible. Like, well, not impossible. It's very difficult, right? But it has. You can. There is a relationship. Okay, not just atheism, any falsehood, lack of belief in any falsehood, reduction, a society believing in more true things and less false things must have a positive effect on average if you could control for all external factors. So it is related.
Well, and also it should be noted that the context of the debate was not a debate on atheism, was a debate on human rights.
Yeah, but atheism is one of the elements you could control for people believing in less in a system that has values that would normalize abuses of abuses, violations of human rights. I think
Mhm.
that's fair to say. I'm not saying it guarantees it, but it helps. Um, Here's the super chat.
Oh, No Name is responding to my previous thing, response to him, saying, I will consider that offer. Very much appreciate it. Yeah, I just want you to know that, like, you're not alone. And what helped me was talking to people, not even necessarily who used to think the same way I did, but people who used to, like, I have friends that used to be Islamists. I have friends that used to be fundamental, religious people. And having someone shift your mind that dramatically, even if it's from a different belief system, talking to them about what that impact on their life and how that changed them, I think will help you as well. Yeah. But you're not alone. So Mary Elise is asking a quick question. What is the difference between this channel / organization and secular jihadists?
Okay, so this channel is okay. So the Q&A is almost the same because you guys decide what we ask, but we try to make this channel more focused about religion, and the simple version of it. The secular jihadist channel is try to be more focused towards geopolitics. Okay, that doesn't. There are a lot of overlaps. Okay, so for example, Atheist Republic sometimes discusses geopolitics, but and secular jihadists obviously always sometimes discusses religious issues, but on average, the main focus of secular jihadists is geopolitics, and the main focus is also the Middle East. Okay, the Middle East, geopolitics, and Atheist Republic is like, yeah, mostly religion, and also just because if secular jihadists touches upon religion, it will be mostly around Islam because the geopolitics of the Middle East will be about Islam most of the time, but not always. Like, because obviously Judaism and Christianity are major topics in the Middle East as well, and Hinduism sometimes comes into effect as well because of the connection. Pakistan, I know it's like borders the Middle East, but the connection between Pakistan and India becomes influential, and also the politics between Muslims and Hindus will make Hinduism relevant as well. But the main if religion is influential in geopolitics in the Middle East, is that the main focus will be Islam. So that's what secular jihadists, when it comes to religion, it will be focusing mostly on that. Atheist Republic tries to be more equal when it comes to talking about religions. It will have Islam, it will have Hinduism, it will have Christianity, it would have Judaism. It will have a lot more Hinduism than other channels have because it's trying to fill in a gap that it seems like a lot of atheist channels don't have. So you could see a lot more Hinduism related news and topics on Atheist Republic, but secular jihadists, because of the nature of it, would be mostly Islam. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, well, it's also important to note that like secular jihadists started out as like specifically an ex-Muslim podcast, so it will
Right.
always have more of an Islamic focus, but also the main difference is that Secular Jihadists is a podcast. Atheist Republic is a registered nonprofit in both the United States and Canada. And we provide content on various platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Clubhouse, etc., etc.,
Right.
etc.
But secular jihadists is an arm of Atheist Republic. So let's also make sure.
Yes, it's like programming that we provide, but it's more
Yes.
specified and it's not its own organization.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Atheist Republic is like, oh yeah, so that's a very good point. Secular Jihadists is a show. Atheist Republic is a whole organization. It's a
We are an
501c.
entity.
It's an entity. Yeah, exactly. So the Atheist Republic YouTube channel is one of the things that Atheist Republic does beyond many other things that it's involved with. But Secular Jihadists is just a show. Atheist Republic is way more than what you're watching. Yeah.
Atheist Republic is the entity that represents the world's largest community of atheists.
That's actually the more important difference. I was comparing the shows. You're right. That's Susanna is correct. Okay.
This is why I'm the CEO.
Yeah, this is why you're the CEO. Okay. Okay, good point.
So let's go to the. Oh wait, this is a really quick follow-up question from Oxymoron. Oh, I would like to answer because Oxymoron is a member. Saying, any plans for a South Asian arm? We do eventually, if we get our patron support up high enough, we do want to do content in Urdu and provide content in Malay and whatever language they speak in Indonesia. I can't remember what you call it. There's a bunch, but the most spoken or understood language in Indonesia, I want to provide content in that language because it's a severely underserved community and it is the world's like largest population of Muslims. So I think that's a gap that really needs to be filled. So let's go to the next question. And let's switch it up, provide a little variety, and let's go back to a question from Rudresh. Rudresh is asking, what's your take on the upcoming midterms? Are Democrats set to lose? Now, the embarrassing part is that I am the only American here on this show, and I don't pay attention to domestic politics at all. So, Armin, as the Canadian, please inform me.
Well, don't worry. I don't pay much attention to Canadian politics, so don't worry about that. But actually, I wouldn't know. Actually, haven't been. What I've heard a lot of people say is that you would expect the Republicans to win because of the norm is that, it's kind of like when the Democrats are in power, the midterm elections usually is going to be in favor of the Republicans and vice versa. That's what I've heard. I don't know how accurate that is. So a lot of people are expecting the Republicans to do very good in the upcoming midterm. Again, these are what the analysts are saying. I don't know how accurate these analysts are. And a lot of people are expecting the Republicans to have a major comeback in these midterms. That is not my prediction. I don't have a prediction because I don't even know how to go about, and I am not familiar enough with US politics to be able to come up with my own prediction on this. Okay, I'm just repeating what other people are predicting, and they could be completely wrong. Okay, and I don't know how right or wrong they are. So
the word on the street is that the Dems are not doing well, from what I hear. But they say that every year, so who knows? I mean, it's kind of not really hypocritical because I do think it is important for people to be involved in local politics, particularly like really in your city where you live, and I do absolutely none of that. And when it comes to American domestic politics, like I think as an American, our news cycle is so saturated and it's so American centric that I'm just so tired of it. It's like the water I've swam in my whole life. And so I put so much of my focus into learning more about the politics around the world because I find it infinitely more interesting.
Mm.
I,
I mean,
I yeah.
but United States politics is important because it affects everything
Hmm.
else on the goddamn planet, right?
Well, I know, and that's why
So,
I should like pay a little bit more
oh,
attention. But I'm
one
like when
reason,
I
for
try
example,
to watch, I'm like, ugh.
one reason why, for example, the midterms are going to be very interesting is because of the Vienna negotiations. Like, if they, I don't know, this is why Biden really needs to rush getting a deal with Iran, because I don't know what's going to happen. Actually, I've heard like, nobody can stop Biden no matter what happens in the midterm elections. Apparently, there's not going to be that much of, they're not going to be able to have that much of an influence over his decision. But I've been getting contradictory reports. But anyways, there's going to be, if Republicans take over, Biden's hands are going to be tied over the things that he could do. So we internationally, so we have to see about that, especially because both Senate and Congress are going to be aggressively anti any deals Biden want to do with the Islamic Republic of Iran. So it's going to be interesting to
Hmm.
see
Hmm.
how that's going to change. Yeah. One thing they
Whenever I
could be unite. One thing they could unite on is the importance of taking a position against China's uh, wolf warrior diplomacy. So
mm,
I think that's something that both Republicans and Democrats can agree on. But
yeah.
go on.
Whenever I try to like tune into American politics, I'm like, "Oh, girl, this is messy. This does not look good." So,
Okay, you're spoiled. Okay, it's you think it's messy, but it's really stable relative to the rest of the planet.
you're right.
When Americans look at their politics, I'm like, oh my god, this is chaotic. Yeah, like okay. Well, compared to where? Compared to Western Europe, sure, sure. Okay, compared to Western Europe, maybe it's like chaotic. Okay, but compared to the rest of the planet, this is pretty good.
We don't. Yeah. I'll just leave it at that. Um. So here is the next question from Secular Sikai, saying, "Could you please discuss a bit about the Habesha African Jewish population, their history, and their treatment in Israel and Ethiopia after Operation Moses saved them from a pogrom? How can both religious and racial discrimination against them from other Jews and non Jews be stopped?" So, to be honest, I don't know much about
Me
Operation
neither.
Moses. I just know that it happened, but it is something I want to look into because people talk about how it was executed like
Oh
the
wait.
most intense, crazy, fascinating, like real life Bond stuff ever. So I do want to learn more about this. In general, I don't know very much about the specific population, particularly in Israel, but I do know more about the general issues that Black Jews face around the world globally. So I
And
can
in
speak a little
Israel.
bit to that. Yes, no, in Israel, definitely. But I'm saying I don't know about the specificities within Israel. I know more about the issues they face globally. Because in college, I actually was, I could have received a minor in Jewish studies because I took a bunch of courses. Um, so in general, there's this contention in the Jewish diaspora of racial stereotyping. So there's a lot of racial stereotyping of Jews as Ashkenazi, which in America we perceive as white. Um, and so we just that's the stereotype of what a Jew is. That's the prototype that we have in our head of what Jewish people look like. So people who don't look like that, we are they're in some ways seen as like invisible Jews. Like they're denied aspects of their Jewish identity because they don't fit what we expect Jewish people to look like. And this can materialize in many different ways. Black Jews talk about how when they go to a synagogue, people ask them if they're in the right place or if it's their first time there, or they ask them, oh, are you part of the janitorial staff? So they face a lot of discrimination and stereotyping in that way. Again, this is more of a generalized experience. I think it might be more specific to the US because I think the United States actually has a larger Jewish population than Israel itself. And we have a particularly large Black Jewish population as well. So, and within Israel itself, I know that Ethiopian Jews face a lot of discrimination, racial discrimination, and there are many movements, particularly regarding how they experience a lot of police brutality. And it's really unfortunate, and there has been kind of coinciding with the huge uprise of Black Lives Matter in 2020, a lot of movement regarding having these issues attempting to be addressed in a new way. Like finally, some of the people who perpetrated this violence against particularly Ethiopian Jewish men have started to be prosecuted. I was watching a quick little Vice documentary about this before the show, and this is how I know like how bad things are in America, because they were like, the police got 3 years in jail for killing this guy. And me as American, I'm like, oh my God, great. They actually got someone in jail for that. Like, this is how low the bar is for me. And then, because then they go on to continue to say, in the protest, the sentence is supposed to be life. And I'm like, oh, damn, like the bar for me is low. So that's about all I know about the issues. How can this be stopped? I think that there just has to be larger representation of non-Ashkenazi Jewish people, more popularization of the images or understandings that not all Jews are Ashkenazi, because that's certainly something. And even like the music that's associated with Jews, it's predominantly Ashkenazi, and so they dominate the cultural awareness. And so I think if there was more representation and celebration of Sephardic, Mizrahi, and all the other aspects of the Jewish diaspora, then that would make people understand that not to make these quick judgments about someone's Jewish identity. Do you have any thoughts, Armin?
Well, my solution is to just make Jewish identity not matter at all, but that's very optimistic and too optimistic.
I mean, yes, I would like it to not matter at all, because then that would also mean that people aren't being persecuted for it, right? But even if people weren't being persecuted for it, I think particularly for Jewish people, because there's been such persecution against them, it's for many people very culturally important that they actively maintain a Jewish identity, because there's been millennia of efforts to have it be erased, right? So I think even if it won't matter
if there's no Jewish identity, there's nothing to persecute. There's nothing to oppress.
That's not true, because people will still could still persecute them on the basis of their ancestry, whether or not they actually maintain Jewish practice in any way, shape, or form.
Well, not anymore. Like at some point, we're gonna mix so much that it's hard to. Everybody will like I'm just saying, like, right? Look, we have Black Jewish people, Ashkenazi Jewish people. I mean, ethnically, it's just meaningless right now anymore. From now, like it's just like, I mean, I'm pretty sure I have some Jewish ancestry. Like I'm, at some point, like it's just gonna mix so much that, I mean, okay. So here's the thing. I think ancestry shouldn't matter, right? And I think culture should be for fun, not for identity. That's what I think. Okay, so if you can make attempts to just make ancestry irrelevant and make culture an entertainment thing rather than an identity thing, that's my solution to all of this. And I know that's like not going to happen anytime soon, but that's what I want.
Okay, but even if that was the case, people would want to be culturally participating in these things, and there would need to be more demonstration of the variety and vastness of that cultural identity that people do.
Yeah, but it should be open to everybody. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying get rid of the culture. I'm just saying keep the culture, but it's more of a fun entertainment thing rather than an identity thing. It should be as open to me than an Ashkenazi Jew, if I want to dabble in it. You know what I mean? My heredity, my DNA, my ancestry, my identity, none of it should matter. Okay? Anybody should be able to experiment with whatever culture at any time they want. Japanese culture, Jewish culture, Islamic culture, not the beliefs. The beliefs are bullcrap, but the culture is for enriching. I enjoy more culture. I
Hmm.
think rich culture, make new culture, mix it up, mix Jewish culture with Japanese culture, create a new fusion, and see what comes up with it. Just have fun with it. I don't care. I mean, I like culture. Okay, I just think like don't get so um butthurt over like who's doing what with it. Like just have
Yeah,
this.
gatekeeping. Okay, in a perfect
Yeah, yeah.
world, I agree with you. Just the way you phrased it would be perceived as possibly straight up anti-Semitic to people. They're like, you're trying to erase my identity. What are you talking about? Yeah, like that's very touchy. So I would
I'm replace. Yeah,
ignore.
I'm an individualist. I'm trying to. I'm against all collective identities.
Mhm.
As an individualist, I'm against all collective identities. I'm not against culture. I like culture. I think they're a great source of entertainment and enriching one's life, as long as you don't think this is defines you. I don't think like that's a good. I think that's harmful. I don't know why somebody say
Secular
that.
Sakai is saying, Armin, you are the most complicated Zionist I've ever met.
I mean, Zionism
True.
just means that you defend Israel as a country. Like, I'm obviously by that definition, I'm a Zionist. Like, so yeah, but I'm against Jewish. Yes, I am against Jewish identity, as I'm against every form of identity that requires a collective to maintain it. Okay, I'm against female identity. I'm against male identity. I'm against Persian identity. I'm against Jewish identity. I'm against Islamic identity. I'm against Christian identity. Any form of collective identity, I'm against it. I'm being like, I'm only for individual identity. We got a major super chat
Yes.
from D.
So D, wait, can you highlight it?
Yes.
D
Thank
is
you, D.
saying, please scroll back and answer Tito Estu's question so new people feel welcomed. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, D, for the very generous super chat and also putting
Yes.
such an import on making new people feel welcomed. I love it. D
That's
is
amazing.
like the mama of AR. Um, so I believe this is the question or comment you were referring to, which is a very good question. Tito Estu is asking, I want to ask something. Is Atheist Republic about atheist supremacy or atheist rights? And is Atheist Republic offensive to religion? Or does Atheist Republic allow theists to join and defend atheist rights? So simple answer is Atheist Republic is definitely about atheist rights, not atheist supremacy. I'll say that every day till the cows come home. And is Atheist Republic offensive to religion? Yes, proudly so. We have no qualms about being so. We, again, want people to respect other people's rights. So we're very passionate, me in particular, about the rights of religious minorities around the world. But that doesn't mean I have to respect their beliefs. And does Atheist Republic allow theists to join and defend atheist rights? Yes, 100%. We have people from different religions as well as across the political spectrum who are part of Atheist Republic who maybe just find the kind of news and content that we cover interesting or who support our way of dissecting issues, and they all contribute different opinions and feedback of how we talk about all these things that happen in the world. Everyone from we have like Hindu nationalists who are interested in our content. I know cultural Muslims who watch and contribute to our work as and people from ex religious people from every religious background pretty much in the world. It's pretty amazing. Do you have anything to add, Norman?
No, that was perfect. I don't think like I
Okay.
need to add anything. Yeah. Oh, we just one last thing. We want to make it so that people defending atheist rights is not conditional on them not being offensive. Okay, because
Mm-hmm.
we think like you should defend Muslim rights, even though they legitimize books that calls for our eternal punishment and our inferiority, right? And we don't say that your beliefs have to be not offensive to us for us to defend your rights. Like we don't have that condition, right? We accept Muslims, Christians, Jews, Hindus, and friends and allies, even though they have beliefs that should be considered very offensive, right, to our existence. Okay, um, Even though, like, oh, why are you upset? You don't believe in a hell. Well, yeah, but these are people who believe that we are deserving of eternal torture, and so, like, that, if you think our ideas are offensive, like, look at what they believe. Okay, but we don't. It's okay. This is not whataboutism, because I'm not saying it's okay. Well, I mean, it's not okay, but what I'm saying is that we still want to defend your rights. We don't think like the beliefs that you have that we find offensive, we don't, you not advocating for those is not a condition that we have for you, for us to defend Muslim rights and Christian rights and Jewish rights and Hindu rights, right? So when we say we want to promote defending the rights of atheists, you shouldn't, we don't want you Christians and Muslims and Jews to come like, okay, but only atheists who shut up about our religion, who only criticize our religion respectfully. No, 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 no.
Mhm.
We're going to come all out, and we're going to be offensive, okay? And we're going to be insulting, and we're going to mock religion. And our expectation is that you still defend our rights, even if we are being extremely offensive to your religion. The same way we defend your rights, even you're being extremely offensive, not to our beliefs, but to our existence, right? To us as individuals, not even to our ideas, right? So those conditions should not be there. We should not
Mhm.
be like, oh, only atheists who are not offensive. But yeah.
Well, and also part of our what people take as offense or blasphemy comes from our passion for the promotion of free expression, which is essential for atheist
Yeah,
rights. So there's that dynamic of it as well. Very
exactly.
quickly, Nagar is asking if I want to learn this kind of eyeliner from Susanna. Do I have to send a super chat? Um, I've had people ask me before. I've been thinking of making like a video on my own personal channel about this, but I struggle with my eyeliner on a daily basis, so I don't know. But thank you, Nagar. That's very sweet. Um, so let's go back to patron questions. So this is a fascinating question from Mario Elise, saying, what do you think of the likelihood? Is it that in the next few years, Pakistan's government will collapse and be replaced by a radical group like the Taliban? Or the TLP, maybe. It seems that as the Middle East slowly becomes less Islamic, this area of the world, meaning South Asia, is going the other direction, which is very interesting because in many ways, you're right. Now, before the show today, I was actually watching an Al Jazeera special on how Imran Khan is facing potentially being ousted as the prime minister because he's facing a vote of no confidence, which hasn't gone through yet. I actually just learned today that Pakistan has never had a prime minister serve his full 5-year term, which is wild. And in response, Imran Khan is it's saying that he has a letter that proves that this is all a foreign conspiracy to oust him, and the Americans are behind it, and they want him out, and all this stuff, yada. But he won't bring forward this letter because of security policies, and oh my god, drama. Anyways, Armin, that was like all I know about that particular situation.
No, but you're correct. You're correct that when you said, it's not going to be Taliban. So we have a Pakistani, we have an
Yeah.
Afghanistan Taliban, we have a Pakistan Taliban, but Pakistan Taliban is not as powerful enough to be able to be the threat. So as Susanna mentioned, it's going to be the TLP in Pakistan, which is, so in Pakistan we have three major forces. We have the military, we have the TLP, which is these radical Muslims, and then we have the civilian government. Okay, the civilian government, unfortunately, is the weakest of these three, right? And the radical Muslims, the TLP, and the military constantly play footsies with each other, and they seem to sometimes, at least the lower rank people in the army, seems to be sometimes very sympathetic to a lot of these radical groups. So this is very extremely dangerous. I mean, if Pakistan's government collapse, we have to talk about which government you're talking about, because Pakistan has two governments. Okay, it's not going to be the military government that will collapse. It's going to be the civilian government that will collapse, because the military of Pakistan is way too powerful for it to collapse, right? So if the civilian government ever collapses, what fills that vacuum, as bad as the Pakistan's military is, I'm hoping it's going to be them that fills that vacuum compared to the TLP. I mean, this is, guys. So here's the thing. This is why. So think about how dangerous that is. Like if the radical groups in Pakistan get a hold, become the main government, take control of Pakistan, that would be significantly more, even more dangerous than Iran having nuclear weapons. Okay, because as radical as the mullahs are in the Islamic Republic of Iran, they're not as radical as these guys. Okay, these people, the TLP in Pakistan, they are a whole other level. Okay, and for a country like that to for a government like that to have nukes, it's like an existential crisis to the entire planet. Okay, and again, the chances of this happening is low, but it's still very high, relatively high. Okay, so what I mean is like if the chances are right now 1%, that 1% turning into 5%, that is really bad. Okay, like it's still low but too high. Okay, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying here. Okay, these are just made up numbers, so I'm not being accurate with the numbers, but this is why a lot of people don't understand why it makes sense for the United States to keep giving aid to the Pakistan military, because the alternative is so devastating for the entire planet. And we're talking about a military force that has been a major sponsor of terror, that has been funding and supporting Taliban, a main enemy of United States, has been funding terror groups in Europe, right? Like terror groups in, terror activities, like for example in France,
including potential links to the ISIS.
Yes, and also
Not
has
to
been.
mention explicitly involved in violent attacks on India through Lashkar-e-Taiba.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. The hotel. What was the hotel in Mumbai? The attacks on that.
That
That
was
was.
just called the Mumbai hotel attack.
Yes, that one, right?
Brutal attack. Horrible.
These are
Horrific.
so, and also support for the people who carried out 9/11. Okay, these come directly from Pakistan's military, including aiding and hiding Osama bin Laden, right? These are all come from Pakistan's military. And yet, after all of this, Pakistan's military is considered an ally of the United States, and United States continues to fund them and support them financially, send them financial aid, right? And people think that's insane, because if any other country had done, if any other military in the world had done a fraction of what Pakistan's military does, the United States military we would be at the United States would be at war with them. Okay, like as bad as the Islamic Republic of Iran is, like this is insane level of direct support for the enemies of the United States. But you think, well, why is taxpayer money being spent on Pakistan's military then, if this is these are their actions? Because the alternative is the TLP, because the civilian government in Pakistan is not strong enough to not be able to stand against these radical Muslims. You need a strong, the military force in Pakistan is very strong, and they have a huge major into the world's largest intelligence agency, right? And the world, it's not just the United States that needs that. The world needs that, even though they're evil. Okay, because if you don't have that standing them again, if they're not there, if the radical Muslims take over Pakistan, you will have, for the first time in history, um, people as radical as ISIS having access to nukes. Okay, that's why the United States is continuing to support the Pakistan's military arm, right? So in that sense, it makes from that
Yeah, and this
perspective, it
is
makes the most sense.
why Pakistan is known as the ally from hell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You have no idea how much it pisses me off as an American taxpayer. Like, oh my God.
Right.
I hate thinking about it. God damn. So let's go to another patron question, this time from Gasian American, asking, should we have a 10-day week with wow. Dyslexia. Should we have a 10-day week with 36 weeks a year plus a 5/6 day bonus week with 30 days per month, abolishing Wednesday the 24th. The 4th will always be a 4th day of the week. The new year being
Okay, wait.
defined by the
No,
solar equinox, spring equinox,
let's
6-day work week, and 4-day weekend.
no. Easy answer,
I
no.
got very
Don't.
confused.
Okay. Just don't change the whatever you have because changing things will be chaotic. Easy answer.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of countries are changing their work week schedule to fit that of the Western businesses. Like the UAE is doing that, and it's
The way
sent their
forward.
culture into chaos because it's disrupting Friday Juma.
Okay, the way forward is just to make things flexible for everyone on an individual basis. Okay, like
Mm.
more make work from home, flexible hours, flexible work days. Not like coming up with new structures of like this is how when the day everybody takes off, this is the day everybody works. Okay, I think like because of the 2 year lockdown we went through, more people are opening up to like you could take off on Saturday and Sunday, but you could take off on another day. Like coming up with more flexible ways for everybody rather than coming up with rigid structures. You need to, I think, become having a competitive market for laborers and making more people demanding more from their employers and more flexible, having days off and hours off. Uh, Relative to their individual lifestyle is a demand that more workers should be able to make in a competitive market, and it should just throw away, and that would be good for everybody, right? Like I don't know, like Muslims should be happy with that. Like, okay, you know what, everybody else takes Saturday and Sunday off, I want Fridays and Mondays off. Okay, like it doesn't have to be because I'm religious, it's just because an atheist could demand the same thing. You know what I mean? I just think we should go through more flexible models rather than coming up with changing rigid, hopping from one rigid structure to another rigid structure. I think if we're breaking structures, then go towards something flexible rather than something else that is rigid.
Mm-hmm. What's so interesting is that historically, like the religious calendars of different groups has economically benefited different groups, because like when one group is taking the day off for their religious observance, the other groups don't have that day off, so they get an economic boost because everyone has to go to their businesses during those days because the people from their own group would be closed. Like
Right.
the stereotype is that, Chinese and Jewish businesses have explosive business on Christmas.
Right.
But the
So
one thing that Armin would agree with here is that the new year should be defined by the spring equinox.
New Year should be, yeah. I mean, okay, so I'm not saying should be like that. I'm saying as a child, it made more sense to me that New Year is in spring rather than in winter. I was like these, as a kid, I was like, these foreigners, they be crazy. They're looking at the trees are dying, everything is frozen. Oh, it's a new year. Like what? Like you're insane. I thought like in Iran, I was like, this makes obviously a lot more sense. Like, look at the flowers are blooming, the sun is out, everything is growing, the animals are everywhere, the birds are singing. That's the new year, you idiots. Right, this is the nature is screaming rebirth, everything is waking up. Obviously that should be the new year. So anyways,
Honestly, you have a point. Speaking of, Mario Luis is saying Armin's stream on the Iranian New Year on the Secular Jihadist channel, he loved it. So guys,
oh, thank you.
Armin did a stream a few days ago on Secular Jihadists called Islam versus Iran. No. What was it? Islam versus Iran, the battle for Iranian identity, in which you talk about the mullahs trying to like abolish and suppress the passion for Nowruz that cannot be contained. Nowruz is too powerful. But guys, go check that out. Particularly go become a patron, and then you can watch the video footage because it's so worth seeing. Like the actual colors and the culture that goes into Nowruz is fantastic and fascinating. I really liked that stream. So go check that out. So next question is from Mario Luis, saying Ukraine has been pushing back against Russia in the approximately last 3 days or so. Some speculate that this is simply a result of the Western aid and Russia's incompetence. Others think that Putin is preparing to nuke Kiev, and to do that, he is pulling back his troops. What's your take on this? Well, first of
Okay,
all,
not the last one.
the latter I have not heard because that's freaking insane.
What?
There
Wait, where
is,
did you hear the last one? Who? What the hell? Who's saying
yeah,
that?
like who said that? There is some intelligence coming out that allegedly Putin had been repeatedly for months, maybe years, been receiving bad information from his ranks because they were too afraid of him to tell him the truth. And that might have been part of what led us to the situation that we're in today. And people are saying, well, he's certainly aware of the situation now, and so that they're adjusting accordingly. I think that's more likely. They're doing a war of attrition now. They're going to pull back and try to focus on the East and pretend that we're not trying to take Kiev. Armin, wait, tell that anecdote about the ceremonial uniforms that you told me last night. Just,
Oh yeah.
to
So
talk
they
about
found
this now course
Oh, it's
correction.
so embarrassing. Okay, so this is so embarrassing. Okay, so apparently, they found in a whole bunch of Russian tanks, they found ceremonial uniforms, and I don't understand why would these tanks have ceremonial uniforms. And the closest theory is that they assume they're just gonna take over Kiev very soon, and they're gonna have a ceremony over like celebration, victory celebration. That's why they had this. That's why they had their ceremonial uniforms packed and ready to go, because they just said like they're just gonna march right away to Kiev, and then just gonna have a ceremony
We're
like,
just gonna
yay,
walk
boy,
through the streets like a
did it,
queen at a
we did it, boy.
ceremonial parade.
If that is the reason why they had those packed, okay, that's really embarrassing. But yeah, okay, so did we answer the questions that pushing back? I mean, guys, I saw the analysis is correct. Like, is Russia is just pathetically weak at doing and logistics, apparently. So that's the Occam's razor response to this. Okay. By the way, don't think like everything is over, right? Like, Russia has been extremely weak, but they still might be able to keep going until they get Kiev. I don't know. Like, we don't know if we could write it off. I mean, it seems less likely than before, obviously, but you can't just like write it off completely. Okay, like, you don't know how much appetite for how much Putin, because Putin, all the pain that is coming to Russia is not a pain that Putin is feeling. You know what I mean? So it's not like coming directly at him; it's coming at oligarchs and Russian people, right? So
And he
his
never
appetite.
has and never will care about the well-being of those people. Like that's one
Yes,
thing
yes.
that we have a hard time looking at when thinking about our adjustment to behavior and reaction to him, is we try to hit him through those means, but that's not going to work.
It might work. Okay, so let me finish my thought before I respond to this. So, even though Russia as a whole is suffering a lot from what Putin is doing, Putin might have a huge appetite for continuing to do this for a very long time. So we don't know. Okay, maybe he will, maybe he will not. Okay, so we know Putin doesn't give a crap about Russian people. He's willing to sacrifice the Russian people for his own ambitions, right? Um, However, so some people are saying, well, this is why the sanctions don't work, because it's not going to take the motivation away from Putin from doing what he does. However, the sanctions does have an effect at eventually taking the funding away from the war. Like, he needs resources to be able to fund the war. So in that aspect, it might eventually stop him, not stop him, but like reduce his capabilities. So there's that as well. We got two super chats, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Really,
the idea of him nuking Kiev, that, okay, unless he has gone full crazy, like, I mean, that is like, I don't know where you're getting that from, but
well,
even if
in
that, if
response,
that's
Mario said Tim Pool said that. Apparently,
okay.
Putin is hiding in a nuclear bunker. Well, Mario, I have grave
No.
concerns about Tim Pool's ability to ascertain and vet
Yes.
information, because he has proven over years that he either has no ability or a willful ignorance towards how to dissect even empirical, well-written, perfectly presented research papers. He will just completely botch the whole thing. I don't trust a word.
No, yeah. I mean,
So,
even if he's right, he's accidentally right, okay?
yeah.
And even if this is a possibility, the possibility is very, very low. And also Tim Pool is the person who predicted that 50 out of 50 states is going to go for Trump.
No,
50
that
out of 50.
California is going to be a Trumpian landslide.
50 out of 50 states he said he predicted that it's going to go for Trump, okay? That is not a person you should be taking seriously about anything.
Yes, completely agree. So, Music Guy just gave us a very generous super chat of $20. Thank you, Music Guy, saying
Thank you.
boop. Um, and wait, this is just kind of a tag onto the last comment from Danhe Kiknen saying Putin needs a larger desk. That made me laugh. Okay, so we got two more super chats as questions. I think I'm going to hold on to those for a little while and get into. We have a few more.
We got the Secular Sekai super chat and we got a D super chat. Both $10 super chats. We'll get back to them.
Yes,
after
acknowledged. We'll circle back. This is an easy question. Mario Luis is saying, any thoughts on the newly elected president of South Korea? No. I don't know anything about him. People say he's
I just found out. Oh, you really? Okay, you know more. You know more than me then. That's all. Okay.
Okay, my only thought is that I was watching footage of South Korean election animations. It's amazing. Imagine like Wii animation, like, you know, the Nintendo Wii animations of but with the elected officials like faces on them, like doing battles with each other. Guys, go look up South Korean election animations, and I could spend a whole day watching those. They're fantastic. But that's my entire thoughts on that. So another question is from, okay, let me scan this really quickly. Okay, so let's do this question from Oxymoron. So there's a little bit of background context that I need to give before I'm going to dive into this. So this is about in America, the content that is in school books is very highly regulated. There are very stringent criteria for what can be allowed in it, and it's very politicized as well. So there's a lot of controversy surrounding this. So this is kind of the larger background to this. So the question is, California textbook controversy. Why do American institutions asymmetrically target Hinduism in school books of beginning in the 6th grade? Is there systemic, institutional, and media push to propagate narrative to cleanse Hindus out of the United States? Okay, so to the direct part of that question, I'm going to say absolutely not. So on the Patreon page, Oxymoron goes on to give more information that I can summarize. But again, Oxymoron, I would like you to, and you provided 2 sources from YouTube videos, which I watched. I very much appreciate you providing the sources for this because so I can understand, like, thank you, because oftentimes you get very lengthy questions. And so you providing a source helped me a lot. I'd like to encourage that. So basically, there's a specific controversy in California, and I would like you to, again, Oxymoron, focus on the fact that this is in California specifically. So then taking this problem in California and then blowing it up to all American institutions in general, I think is completely inaccurate. Okay, so let's dial into California for a second. So there's lots of controversies about how the California textbooks cover the issue of Hinduism. And so one of the issues is that it refers to the Aryan migration as the Aryan invasion. And this is a historical event that is very highly controversial across different groups. You know, the word invasion implies violence, it implies aggression, and people are saying that this is not proven, that you can't, it's very highly contested. And some people say it's just migration, some people say no, it was an invasion. But this textbook refers to it as an invasion. there was also the insistence in these textbook as caste as a core principle of Hinduism. And even Oxymoron says, depends on the sect, but I sort of agree. And it also portrays sati, which is a practice of widow burning on, their husband's funeral pyre, as a core practice. And basically saying criticism isn't a problem. They're not, that's not the problem with that this person has with these texts, the content in these textbooks, but they're saying it's asymmetrical, so that other faiths don't get the same kind of criticism or negative reflection is what Hindu groups have about the portrayal. And in some cases they would be right, and they have a right to be concerned about it because it actually is against law, especially in California. So, and then they gave the example of, the Bible was used to justify slavery itself in the United States, but there's no mention of this. Witch hunts, unlike sati, aren't associated with Christianity. Same case with Islam. They don't bring up Islamic slavery. So, first of all,
I agree with him.
I didn't go to school in California, so I can't talk about, or during this period of my life, I can't talk about, what it's like for a middle schooler in California. However, I can say that when I was learning about these things, especially the history of slavery in the United States, we definitely learned 100% that the Bible was used to justify slavery. This is something we were explicitly taught. In terms of the witch hunts, we were explicitly taught that this was a product of the Puritan movement of Christianity, explicitly so. So again, that's my anecdotal experience, but it would be, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure people try to disassociate the two, but it'd be extremely difficult to try to divorce these faiths from these incidents in history. Now, I watched the videos that are provided about the problems that people have with these the way Hinduism is presented. Now, with me personally, I found some of the contentions that they have with this as an effort to erase the existence of caste from textbooks. Particularly, they had an issue with the sentence that says, in India, there's a group called Untouchables, and they perform tasks like working with leather, cleaning through garbage, working with corpses, etc. And how did the California respond to these contentions? They took out acknowledgement of the phrase untouchables and just said there are people who do these tasks. Now, if I was a Dalit, I would be extremely offended by this, because I was saying, you are denying the history of my people, that we are referred to as untouchables. We are treated as untouchables for the jobs we have historically had to this day. So it really depends on who's looking at these issues. Some of the other contentions were that there was basically, when you compare how Hinduism is treated versus how Judaism is treated, there's been a great lobbying effort by different Jewish groups to basically erase the existence of slavery in their societies. And I think there are very good contentions about how lobby groups have successfully watered down and whitewashed their own history. And that's something to be concerned about. However, I think that Hindus have a right to respond in kind. I wish that this wasn't overall an effort to whitewash histories of different religious groups, but that's going to be the product. There was something else I wanted to say. Oh yeah, one example in the video you sent me, because it's in the law regarding the teaching of religion historically. Again, this isn't to promote faith. That it's not supposed to supposed to promote faith in any way, not supposed to tell children what to believe or not to believe. And this outrageous example that the Hindu American Society or Foundation brought up against these books was that there's an anecdote of one day one kid came home after learning about Hinduism in class and said, "Mom, I don't want to be Hindu anymore." And they said this is a demonstration of how unjust and how hateful. Exactly how unjust and hateful that this textbook and this material is. And I was like, not necessarily. Maybe this kid learned more information about his faith that his parents hadn't taught him his whole life, and came to his conclusion. There are lots of people like Armin who were very passionate about their belief, and in their own pursuit of knowledge about the history of their faith learned, actually, this isn't something that I like. this happens to lots of people. That doesn't necessarily mean that the content is bigoted. I do see how people could have contentions about the asymmetry. Like I said, I wish it didn't result in ultimately whitewashing this content. And again, I've found a lot of the ways that this was phrased to be an effort to erase the experience of casteism in these societies, because it was saying Hinduism was more negatively portrayed because it showed, you know, a Dalit or untouchable person working with trash and garbage, but there was no equivalent representation for these other faiths. Well, this is something that's real. This is something that happens in this world. This is something that happens to millions of people who themselves identify as Hindus. Like, should that not be
I
included?
agree though. Yeah, but I agree though. I would appreciate having. I mean, if you're saying there's stuff that portrays Christianity in a bad way, and there's stuff that portrays Hinduism in a bad way, I like that. But if there is nothing that portrays Islam in a bad way, I would agree with Oxymoron that can we have some of that, please? I would agree with Oxymoron if
Yes.
that is missing. Then there should be some of that, and Judaism as well. I don't think they, I don't think they would dare. But if they could, Judaism and Islam as well, but that would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, this is a very complicated issue. Unfortunately, what we teach our children is incredibly politicized. This is a huge demonstration of that. Whoever has better lobbying power is going to get more of the results that they want. And in response, in the video that you provided me, they said, here is content that we provide as an example to show to the state of what we would like to see. It's backed by scholars, and this is Hindu-approved material. I'm like, ew. What do you mean Hindu approved? Who are you to say that you are the authority
Yeah.
on
The least
what
people
is
you should
Hindu
trust.
approved? I don't want that kind of content in
No,
education.
no.
And the same goes for other groups. I want it to be
Yes.
authoritative and scholarly, but a lot of what is authoritative and scholarly is inconvenient for religious groups. So I don't want
Exactly.
something that's Hindu approved. I don't want something that's Jewish approved or Christian approved. But
Actually, okay,
politics
let's
and
last point, Sus. We need to move on like to the next question. But like, that's a very good point, because a lot of Hindus and Muslims often come to us and say like, why are you asking these people who are not Muslim or Hindus? Why don't you ask the actual people? Why don't you ask Hindus themselves or Muslims themselves? Well, because you should trust them the least. When you want to learn about Hinduism, the last people you should trust is Hindus. When you want to learn about Islam, the last people you should be trusting are Muslims, because they're emotionally invested in defending it. Obviously, they're not going to be a good source for information. Average. I mean, okay, to be fair, there are certain Muslim scholars and Christian scholars and Hindu scholars who go out of their way to be objective. Okay, I've seen Muslim scholars who, when they're doing scholarly work, for they are able to be very objective about what they're doing. I've seen that. Okay, and I've seen Christian and Hindu scholars as well, like that as well. Okay, but but you being a Muslim or being a Hindu or being a Christian does not give you an advantage. It actually gives you a disadvantage, because you have to work against your emotions to be objective about something.
Yeah, long story short, I don't think there's any systemic effort to cleanse Hindus out of the United States at all. Southeast Asians are some of the most high achieving people in North America, period. Like, insanely so. So it would actually be very much against our own interests. I think you're taking one example that is very complicated and generalizing it too much.
Okay,
but
we
I
need
will agree
to
that
go through
yes.
the questions. Yeah.
So this is
Okay, Susanna, when I take long, you should be more patient with me, because sometimes I take longer, and you were like, "Hey, we have so many questions."
I was very patient with you today.
Yes, you're right. You're right. You are.
I
very
didn't even
patient.
tell you to hurry up once today.
I know. I'm just trying to use this. Okay, true. You're right. You're right.
Very interesting question from Mario Lise, saying, do you think we will ever see an outright war between Iran and Saudi Arabia? If yes, Who do you think will win? If not, then how do you think the Islamic Republic of Iran will look like in 10 to 20 years? Will it exist at all? Will it be replaced? What do you think? Now, my short answer is that if there was a war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and it was just those two, like there wasn't US support, then Iran would just trounce Saudi Arabia. I think of Saudi Arabia as a fat kid, a fat rich kid who, when he gets slapped across the face, has to be like, I gotta pay someone else who's actually physically fit to go defend me because I'm too fat to actually do something for myself. Like,
I would talk
Saudi
about the
Arabia
regime,
has
not the
no
people.
demonstrated ability to defend itself, and Iran is extremely well versed and skilled at asymmetrical warfare. Now, would that happen? Saudi Arabia will have the support of the U.S. That's why, yeah. So, Armin,
That
your
was the
analysis.
perfect. That was the perfect answer. Okay, so if nobody came to the help of Saudi Arabia, Iran will definitely win. Okay, but this is the reason why you need allies. Okay, this is the reason why you're okay. So Iran's government, okay, the Islamic Republic of Iran, has invested so much in trying to have better, capabilities, military capabilities, but at the expense of allies. And they think like, but this is a huge miscalculation in today's world, right? You're like, we don't need, you lose friends, but you have a better military, okay? But countries with less equipped militaries than you will be able to defeat you because they have more friends, okay? And the Islamic Republic of Iran's friends would never even come to defend it. Like, okay, so think about it, right? A country like Israel or Saudi Arabia, they have friends who will come to war for them, okay? The Islamic Republic of Iran has friends like China or Russia, who, for example, if Iran went to war with Israel or Saudi Arabia, China is not going to attack. China is not going to attack Saudi Arabia, or China or Russia will not attack Israel or Saudi Arabia for the sake of Iran. They will not do that for you, Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay, but United States and a whole bunch of United States, Canada, Western Europe, and a whole bunch of other countries will come to the defense of Israel and Saudi Arabia if Iran goes to war with Saudi Arabia. Okay, first of all, because they're drunk on its oil, right? Um, but so they're not going to let you do that, right? But this is how important it is for you to understand, coalitions and unity and working within the international structure that we have created. Like, if you want to go your own way and be like, we're just going to be tough, we're just going to be strong, well, that's not going to work out. Okay. I don't think a war like that will ever happen. I think there's going to be a lot of proxy fights between Iran and Saudi Arabia. I don't think Iran has an appetite for going to direct confrontational war with Saudi Arabia, and I don't think Saudi Arabia has an appetite for that either. I think if there ever happens an outright war between Iran and Saudi Arabia, if that ever happens, it's because of a whole bunch of miscalculations from both sides that forces their hand into something that neither side wants. It would be devastating to the economy on both sides. Like, this is not in the best interest of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and it's not in the best interest of Saudi Arabia. If they both would be devastated from something like this, especially given that Iran wouldn't like that, because Iran knows that the world will come at it in the same way the world came out against Saddam when they were, when they had a war with Kuwait. You're basically going to unite the entire planet against Iran, right? This is why Iran wants nukes, by the way, because then it would be impossible to unite the world against you like that. I mean, maybe you could do that in Russia's. Okay, that would be a different situation. And also, Saudi Arabia can't even beat the Houthis. Okay, Saudi Arabia, with all the most modern, the most expensive deals, military deals, weapons, defense weaponry that they have bought from the United States in the world's largest historical deals that they ever have done, they can't stop a whole bunch of some cheap drones. Okay, they have the most expensive equipment to try to defend their, you know, um, their oil and their, you know, their refinery and all the facilities they have. And the Houthis, with the help of the Iranians, they managed to make drones that are less than 100,000 each, and they still managed to
Mhm.
go past all of that. I mean, they're very vulnerable.
They're
Okay,
fat kids that aren't used to defending themselves. Have
yeah, they don't have the experience of war. They don't know, they just know how to spend money. They don't know how to go to war. They don't know, they don't have strategy. They are incapable. And you know, and also a lot of the things that they buying, it's really good for the United States financially, because United States is giving them stuff that is really hard to maintain, and they constantly need to pay United States more to just to be able to maintain and train them and facilitate the parts. Like it's just like a lot of the times they buy these things just so that they get the support of the United States. It's really, it's insane. Okay, but what I'm saying is that if you can't defend yourself against just the Houthis, okay, what are your chances against the full military of the Islamic Republic of Iran? Okay, like you're gonna have no chance. And it's not just the oil facilities that you have; it's also water, right? There are a whole bunch of water facilities that Iran, if Iran attacks, it would devastate Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia knows. This is why Saudi Arabia is constantly interested. Like they keep talking about the threat of the Islamic Republic of Iran, but they also realize that with this pivot of United States out of the Middle East, they need to ease tensions with Iran, because they know they can't even deal with Iran's proxies. They cannot even deal with the threat of Iranian proxies, let alone Iran itself. That's why they keep wanting to have talks with Iran, like, okay, let's be enemies, but less aggressive, okay? Like, let's just ease up tensions. The Saudi Arabia is very interested right now in easing up tensions with Iran, because they cannot tolerate the proxies right now. Imagine how big of a deal it's going to be. And also Saudi Arabia is, as you know, a lot of people look at Iran and look at all these people protesting in the streets against the mullahs, and they feel like Iran is very fragile right now. The regime in Iran is fragile, but the fragility of the House of Saud is a lot higher right now. Okay, these people be paranoid right now, and rightfully so. Actually, maybe paranoia is not the right way to say it. So they cannot have more instability. Like Saudi Arabia, like they are, you know, I think a lot of people in IRGC in Iran, they sleeping at night feeling like we got this. Okay, maybe the office of the supreme leader, maybe they don't feel them very secure about the future, but the IRGC, I think right now feels very secure about the future of them remaining in power. Okay, but the people in Saudi Arabia, they don't know what's going to happen in the next 20 years. They are so scared right now. And they don't, with the level of insecurity they have about their maintenance of power in the next 20 years, they don't want to mess with anything. More insecurity means is dangerous, and that's why more than the Islamic Republic, they understand the the desperation and the value for making friends. This is why
Mhm.
they're throwing, this is why Saudi Arabia is throwing ideology out the window, and they're
running to
like
diversify their economy.
and friend, and like we be friends, like, hey, like does the devil have an embassy? Because we won't want, we welcome the devil, right? Like
Where
anybody who
is
can.
Shaitan's consulate? Okay.
Right? This is also why Saudi Arabia has not been very agreeing, hasn't been very friendly with the United States when it comes to taking a position against Russia, for example, right? They were like, we can't trust you as allies, United States. You have removed the Houthis from a terrorist list, right? We say terrorist because we don't want to get demonetized, right? Um, so we need all the friends we could get, including Russia right now. So they're like, well, so anybody like Israel, like the country that was the most taboo to be friends with, like we're like, okay, we will work with everybody because we be scared of these Shias right next to our, right on the other side of the Persian Gulf. So yeah.
This is funny. Mary Louise, in response to my answer, said, Susanna, secret Shia confirmed. Um, And also, this was funny. Mary Louise said, I did end up getting the rough Susanna treatment over me watching Tim Pool rather than the rough Armin treatment that I was looking for. Still well worth my €1 per month.
Yes, guys, if you want to get
I gotta be
abused,
honest though,
become a
Mario
patron.
Louise, that was not the rough Susanna treatment. Rough Susanna treatment is much more harsh. But you gotta make me actually very angry to see that. So next question is from Rudresh asking, how's the Ethereum blockchain different / better than the Bitcoin blockchain? Is it the block time or hash algorithm? This is way beyond me. Armin, please explain.
I mean, you know this. How the Ethereum blockchain better than the different and better than the
Well, no,
Bitcoin blockchain? Well,
the time versus hash. I don't know what that means.
I don't think those are the reasons. I mean, okay, so the main reasons why the Ethereum blockchain is superior is because it could do a lot more. Right? You can make smart contracts with it. The Bitcoin blockchain is a lot, more rigid. Also, the Ethereum blockchain is about to go from being proof of work to being proof of stake. The Bitcoin blockchain will never do that, because so the Ethereum blockchain. So for people who don't know, should I explain blockchain technology here? No, right? Like I'm assuming that a lot of you already know. Okay, but the Ethereum blockchain is a lot more flexible. You could do a lot more things with it. The Bitcoin blockchain's selling point is that it's the most secure in the goddamn planet. Okay, there's a lot more nodes, constantly doing proof of work, and proof of work is more secure than proof of stake, and it's basically a blockchain that is, if you were looking for a store of value, the amount of security, and the least amount of risk that you could accept from a blockchain, it would be the Bitcoin blockchain, right? So, but the reason for why it's important for the Bitcoin blockchain to be extremely secure and for it to remain proof of work rather than go to proof of stake, because to maintain that level of security, is because the only selling point for Bitcoin blockchain is that it's a store of value. Okay, so it's a place for. So when people look at Bitcoin, right, people look at it in three different ways. As an asset, they look at it as from three different perspectives, right? A currency, a store of value, or an investment. Okay, even though people treat Bitcoin in three different ways, the selling point is a store of value, right? So when you look at Bitcoin as a currency, you're comparing it to something like the dollar. When you look at Bitcoin as a store of value, you're comparing it to something like gold. When you look at Bitcoin as an investment, you're looking at it like a stock, and specifically a tech stock, right? The problem with Bitcoin right now is that it doesn't behave like gold. It behaves like a tech stock. But the selling point of Bitcoin is that it's supposed to be a store of value rather than an investment. But people say, well, we're investing in it right now because eventually it will behave like something like gold. All right. Well, eventually when it hits its peaks and it's not as volatile anymore, then it's going to be as a hedge against inflation. Right now, it's acting like a tech stock because we're not there yet, right? But so right now, a lot of people are looking at it like an investment rather than a hedge against inflation or as a store of value. Okay, but the major selling point of Bitcoin is for it to eventually be something like a digital gold. Okay, a digital gold. So for it to become a store of value, it needs to be secure. It needs to do nothing else than being secure. Nothing else than being secure. So it needs to have the best technology for it to not be able to be screwed with, right? So it needs to remain proof of work. It needs to have nodes, decentralized nodes all around the world, and nobody be able to mess with that, right? That's what makes the Bitcoin blockchain very rigid, very okay. But the Ethereum blockchain is a lot more flexible. It's less secure, but still more secure than all the other blockchains after Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it's capable of going to becoming proof of stake rather than proof of work. But the selling point of Ethereum is not one thing, okay? Because Ethereum, unlike Bitcoin that does one thing, Ethereum does everything. Right? It's like, if you could have like, can Ethereum do this? The answer is like, probably yes. There's some way that it could do that, right? I mean, theoretically, like, I don't know, if in practice, I don't know, but any question that starts with can Ethereum, in theory, the answer to that is yes. Okay. um so and okay, so if you think about uh Bitcoin trying to be digital gold, one way to think about Ethereum is that Ethereum could be looked at as digital oil, right? And what you use, you burn oil to make things go, to do stuff with, right? To turn on the lights, to make the cars go, to travel, to turn on to run a computer, right? And so given how fuel can be used for so many things. So I think Ethereum could also be seen as a digital version of oil because you can make it do so many things, right? You could write, and the main thing that people think about Ethereum doing is digital contracts. I mean, smart contracts, but that's like a simple way that it's that functionality with Ethereum. You could make it to make apps with, like apps that are immutable, transparent, um, you know, and um, you know, everlasting. Nobody can screw up with it. So yeah, and trustless, most importantly trustless, right? So you could, with that, you could make decentralized finance, you could make decentralized legal systems, you could make decentralized, you could own stuff, you could, there's so many things you could make. Decentralized decentralized organizations, right? DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. There's endless number of things that you could do with that, and that's why makes Ethereum, to me, to a lot of people, it seems like, given the utility of Ethereum relative to Bitcoin, Ethereum at some point needs to be have a bigger market cap than Bitcoin, okay? Because Bitcoin answers one problem. Bitcoin answers the response to one need, okay? Bitcoin would never be a good currency, okay? A lot of people think Bitcoin is a good replacement for dollars. From the three things that you mentioned, Bitcoin will never be a good currency. It would be a good replacement for gold. It will never be a good replacement for a dollar, okay? um that's why people think, like, if you need a currency, you could have a currency that is backed up by Bitcoin rather than a Bitcoin itself being a currency. Just like we had the dollar that was backed up by gold, you could make cryptocurrencies that are really good for trade that are backed up by Bitcoin rather than Bitcoin itself being used to buy. I mean, any any currency that is not inflationary is not a good currency, because why would you spend it, right? You need your currency to have like something like a 2% inflation rate for people to use it for spending, because if it's deflationary, then you're going to keep it, so it's not going to be a good currency, right? So it's not going to be a good currency, so it's only going to be, it's not, if it's an investment, then it's not doing what it's supposed to do. If it's acting like a tech stock, then it's not going to doing what it's supposed to do. So Bitcoin is the answer to one problem. So it shouldn't, technically it shouldn't have a market cap as bigger than Ethereum. Right now it has, right? Because Ethereum is such a solution to so many things. So many people say, like, eventually Ethereum's need to take over Bitcoin. However, the argument against that is that we have so many competitors to Ethereum, right? We have Solana and Cardano. Like, Bitcoin does not have a major competitor. right? Maybe Monero, some people argue, but it's so far behind to compare to Bitcoin, right? Um, but Ethereum has some serious competitors, still by a huge margin, but it's arguably Solana and Cardano one day could become major competitors to Ethereum. So that might be the reason why Ethereum will, will always lag behind Bitcoin in market cap. But eventually, these markets of different cryptocurrencies will become separate so far from each other that they will become their own worlds. Right now, we're looking at them, Bitcoin and Ethereum, even though these are so different from each other and do so much different things, just putting them in the same category together, it just doesn't make any sense. The only reason why they're all in the same category is because people are looking at cryptocurrencies as if as blockchain technology as this is one thing, right? But eventually they will decouple and not move so closely together. Right now, if you look at when Bitcoin is rising, Ethereum is also rising, even though they're completely different answers to different problems. They shouldn't be this correlated. Eventually, but the reason is that because this is such a new market and hasn't matured enough. Eventually, when it becomes more mainstream, the movement of these assets will decouple from each other, and they wouldn't be so correlated. Their movement wouldn't be so correlated with each other. I don't know if that answers the question, but what do you think?
No, I think you explained that very well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
people in the chat agreed.
Okay, cool. Nice.
So let's answer this question by D. Saying, well, first of all, do you think for the $10 super chat? Do you think the West is getting any propaganda regarding the Ukrainian war? I'm not sure if you mean like we're getting Russian propaganda or we're getting Ukrainian propaganda or we're propagating our own propaganda. In the sense of, are we getting, let's say we're getting Ukrainian propaganda? I think we are to some extent. There's the fog of war, so it's very easy to advertise maybe more victories than there actually are, especially in the first week. That's where I saw the most of it. There was the whole Ghost of Kiev thing with the footage was actually from a plane from a video game. And then there was the Snake Island thing, with the FU or go F yourself Russian warship, which became very iconic in the first week. Everyone thought that all the men there died. Turns out they didn't all die. One was awarded honors or medals recently. So I think there was some of that. I saw that most in the beginning. I believe I see less of it now as there's more people on the ground, more ability to verify things. And a lot more other independent like watchdogs looking over things. I think there's more ability to verify. In terms of Russian propaganda, I mean, there's definitely a great effort to get that into the quote unquote Western market. It's been greatly blunted by the fact that like the European Union and other countries have straight up banned RT, which isn't something I really support because, I'm a big free speech person. That's not the case in the US. They're still able to operate in the US, I think. But I think they actually may be closed in the US, not because of being banned, but maybe because of their inability to actually get funds to operate now. I'm not sure if that's correct. So like, don't quote me on that. Armin, what do you think about the information war? Because all wars are information wars.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen. Okay, so the pro-Ukrainian, if there's any inaccurate like propaganda, being too excited about the Ukrainian side, it's just, even if it's there, it's just so small compared to the misinformation that is coming from the Russian side that it's just like not even comparable. Like, and I think the I've noticed a lot of people have been good in being skeptical. Like maybe initially they were very, very eager into accepting everything positive, but now I say like, okay, yes, this is problematic. However, like I noticed, like I think a lot of people who are defending Ukraine are doing a good job taking back some of the things that they thought it was true and it isn't, acknowledging their mistakes. I haven't seen anything too crazy. Most of the crazy is coming from the pro-Putin. I don't want to say pro-Russian because we are pro-Russian here. We're just anti-Putin, right? I mean, we are anti-Putin because Putin is bad for Russia, right? So I think like the crazies is mostly coming from the pro Putin side. So I haven't seen that. I've seen a few cringy takes from the pro Ukrainian side, but not that many. Mostly, is not comparable. What I'm mostly concerned about is what happens going forward, right? Because when you are so obviously on the right side, then it would turn into a cultish mentality at some point. You know what I mean? And people will overdo it. And also, you see like people become Russia phobes. Bigotry against Russians could increase, and Western countries could misuse all this political capital that they're getting right now, right? Into like they might have a whole list of um, nefarious activities that they had on their agenda, and they're like, it's like saying, oh my god, all these people are on this bandwagon of being anti-Russia right now. Let's go through our list and seeing what we can sell right now, similar to the way like when after 9/11 everybody was like sympathizing with the United States, and we're like, oh, let's look at our list. Oh, we wanted to invade Iraq. Can we like somehow connect these with each other and just go at invade Iraq, right? So I'm worried about all this political capital that Western countries are, I mean, pro democracy countries are getting right now. I'm hoping that it's not going to be misused in a way. Like I'm saying, like I said, like after World War I, the political capital was misused, and the anti-German attitude was so bad, and they were crushed and humiliated to such a degree, which actually led to World War II, right? So that was bad. After World War II, the lessons from World War I apparently was learned, and instead of crushing and humiliating Germany and Japan, there was an effort on helping them lift them up and rebuilding and everything. And look at the results of that. Look at what happened with Germany and Japan. After one generation, they became the most important, two of the most important countries in the new liberal order, right? So you see that how effective that is. But then apparently those lessons were lost after Cold War and after 9/11. After the Cold War, the attempts to bring Russia into the big boys table was not there. So that's why we're dealing with what we're dealing now, right? And after 9/11 also there was a lot of political capital that was misused, right? So I'm just hoping that this political capital that we have right now, the pro-democracy countries, they don't misuse it for spreading propaganda and then using it to do something that we have to deal with. Like after invasion of Iraq, like the narratives flipped so fast. Like the world was so pro United States because of 9/11, and after the invasion of Iraq, the entire world, the narrative of US bad became the main narrative of political commentary, right? So now
To the
with the
point that
Ukrainian,
nowadays people from that generation cannot mentally correct.
yes. So now we have seeing a resurgence of people because of Ukraine. Ukraine has becoming the leader of like is reminding the entire world what how valuable the liberal order is, and what it is, the value in it, and how Ukrainians, how much they're willing to sacrifice to be part of that, right? And the branding of liberalism is rising again thanks to the sacrifice of Ukraine, and also their bravery and everything. I just hope we don't screw it up again for another few decades, because given the rise of tyranny around the world with Russia and with China and with the Islamic Republic of Iran, we need people to believe in liberalism, and we need the world liberals to unite and stand up against that. So I really hope the world and the liberal countries don't screw up this political capital that they just received. So there's
We have a lot of goodwill. Don't drop the ball.
yeah.
So let's go to a question from Mario Lise saying, what are your thoughts on the Babylon Bee/Man of the Year situation? So the background on this, and I'm going to have to be very careful about how we talk about this because this is a landmine of stuff that YouTube does not like and is, yeah, again, we just got our monetization back. So the background is that the Babylon Bee is think of it as it's a parody site similar to The Onion, but it's more right-leaning. And so they put more poke fun at left-leaning political positions and stuff like that. And, they make some content that I do find funny, or, a funny reflection on the outrages or the absurdities of the left, right? So they recently, and let me check the date really quickly. On March 15th, they published an article called The Babylon Bee's Man of the Year is Rachel Levine. And they name Rachel Levine, who is the U.S. Assistant Secretary for Health for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, as well as an admiral in the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps. And so very high-ranking public health official. And this article is one of the most explicitly transphobic things I have read in a long time. It's bad. I don't have a problem with mockery or mocking someone, right? But this is explicitly bigoted. And dead naming her.
Is this satire? Somebody saying it's satire.
What's satire is that it's a satire website, but there's nothing satirical about this article being hateful. Like, especially based on the context of the Babylon Bee and the kind of content they put out about, trans people before. Like, it is about saying you are a man, and just repeatedly emphasizing and misgendering and denigrating Rachel.
So funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. What a joke. Haha.
Yeah, like I can't I'm like, because of YouTube, I don't even think I should repeat like what they say in this article. But it's extremely rude and just blatantly disrespectful. And saying that, Rachel dresses like a Western stereotype of what a woman is, which is an accusation thrown against trans women all the time. If you look at Rachel Levine, she dresses like every 60-year-old woman I know. Like, she doesn't dress like a stereotype at all. She dresses like women in their 60s. So because of this, they got banned from Twitter because deliberately misgendering people is against Twitter policies. So this has caused a huge outrage. And then they went on to point out the hypocrisy of what Twitter does ban people for, stuff like this versus what they don't. And they highlight stuff from the Houthis, which is extremely bad and anti-Semitic. So yeah, it's a huge controversy. But reading what they put out, I was honestly shocked. Like I said, this is one of the most explicitly transphobic things I have seen in a long time. And I'm not someone who is and I'm not an offense junkie, right? I'm not someone who, like, the slightest little thing will throw out an accusation of it being homophobic or racist or blah, 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 blah. But there is no other way that you can interpret this article. Like, it's obtuse. We applaud this precious and perfectly made child of God for all of. Well, I'm not going to repeat the misgendering because YouTube can get mad. So I'm going to use the correct.
YouTube, we're against misgendering people.
I'm going to use the correct pronoun, but in your mind, replace it with the opposite one, and then just get a sense of this sentence, because I hate this so much. We applaud this precious and perfectly made child of God for all of her accomplishments and hope he stays true to who God made her to be. It's so gross.
Yeah. It's so gross.
Talking to someone like that is disgusting.
It's Christian love.
It's so gross. And I don't even think they're sincerely Christian. They're just doing that because they can. Like,
they know how hateful that stuff. Do you think Christians, not all Christians again, but do you think Christians who talk like that know how disgusting that kind of talk is? And that's why they use it?
I think the Babylon Bee does. I don't know if Christians in general do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. All right, let's move on because we are over 2.5 hours, and we have. Can we do the super chat? We missed the super chat by secular.
I
This
know
way.
we
Let's
have
do
the
this.
super chat by Secular Sakai, and we have two more patron questions.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, so the question by Secular Sakai, thank you for the $10, is what are your thoughts on foreign volunteers traveling to Ukraine to help the Ukrainian military? Will the new Russian draft and Belarusian threat spur on more international recruits? So it's a little bit of interesting how people perceive this, because some people are saying, oh, well, now it's suddenly okay to have foreign people coming in and fighting for a foreign nation, but when it's Muslims, you guys have a huge problem with it. I'm like, well, in that situation, it was ISIS guys. I think there's some pretty significant differences, but we're just going to ignore those. Oh, okay, because Islamophobia, right? Um, but
Okay.
there are a lot of foreign volunteers who are traveling who are not equipped. Like, there has been a very Armin knows more about this, but there's been a lot of Redditors going to Ukraine to volunteer, and it has been going horribly. And some people have said that the subreddit of volunteers from Ukraine has maybe been responsible for the death of like 300 people. So as long as they are equipped, well trained, and
Allegedly.
skilled, yeah, allegedly, if skilled combatants, like, go for it. It's contentious,
What?
and they're
I
actually
mean,
so
if
many of them
you can
are.
go. No, no, no. You can go if you're not a combatant. Just go volunteer as somebody that is not fighting.
Yes,
If you want to go. Go volunteer as somebody that is bringing food or helping children or like driving a
medical,
truck,
humanitarian.
medical needs. Yeah. If you don't know, I again, me and Susanna, we don't know anything about fight. Military. We don't have any military expertise, but we have been told that if you don't know how to fight, you're more of a reliability. If you don't have training, you're a big you're a bigger cost than a benefit, right? So go
You're actively
volunteer.
putting the lives of Ukrainians in danger,
Yeah,
by
yeah. Go
involving yourself
volunteer and
in the
do so.
situation.
I think like if you go there and you want to insist on volunteer as a fighter, even though you're not trained, then this is more about you being cool, and this is more about you than Ukrainians. This is more about you wanting to be significant. This is more about you wanting to shoot somebody. This is more about you wanting to be a significant part of history. This is not actually about making a positive difference, okay?
Yeah.
Because you could do that with actually with yeah, you could do
What's
that with
interesting to know is that there
by
are
helping.
several nationals who are actually skilled combatants, going to go lend their skills to the fight, who, because they are going to go fight for a foreign nation, they are actually violating the laws. They're doing something illegal in their home country. So they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm done here, because I broke the law. So that's a very interesting contention as well. I don't know how that's going to pan out. Do you have any thoughts about the Russian draft and Belarusian threat? I don't have
What
any
is it?
opinions on that.
No, what is?
Well,
I don't even know.
I didn't. Apparently, there's a new Russian draft, and of course, like, will Belarus get involved? To what? I mean, they are, but like, to what extent are they going to put boots on the ground? Like,
Okay, so the Russian draft, like they're bringing in more people than like. So what is this? Does that not contradict the claim by Russia that they're going to ease up? Like, I mean, you can't trust Putin, obviously, but like this is why they. But does that is a sign that they actually are about to escalate rather than reduce their activity? Okay, we'll see. Okay, so I'm just gonna say that this might be a sign that they are, even though they're saying that they're going to de-escalate, they're about just like before, just like when they said they're not gonna attack Ukraine and they attack Ukraine. It might be possible that right now, when they're saying that we're gonna retreat and de-escalate, they might actually escalate. So just take that as a possibility going forward, especially given these activities, right? Do you think like
um,
do you think just with the lockdowns when it started, we thought like this is like a 2 month thing, and then 2 years later it still continued? Maybe with this whole Ukraine thing, do you think we are thinking like, okay, maybe another month or two, this will be over, and then maybe 5 years from now, we're gonna have a stream and be like, remember 5 years ago when we thought that this is not gonna last a year, and we're still now at war? like I don't know, guys. This would be
I wouldn't
okay.
be
I don't know.
surprised,
I wouldn't be
unfortunately.
surprised. Yeah.
if this drags out. I mean, this is like already a quagmire for Russia, but they need to save
Yeah,
face with the way that they handle it. So they could just keep keep
I
up
mean,
the
there's
bombardment for their own domestic audience.
true. I mean, and there already has been an 8-year war around like the Donbas region. So you could just have that over half of Ukraine for the next 10 years, maybe. I don't know. I
I
don't
think
know.
they're going to pull back to the east.
You think? Okay,
Uh,
we'll see.
we'll see. Um, so, patron question from Rudresh. How do you see the correlation between the Industrial Revolution and the social liberalization in the West and eventually the world?
Oh, I think they're very related. They're connected to each other because the Industrial Revolution. Do you remember when we mentioned that studies show that economic development um, has a positive effect on human rights, and human rights seem to have a positive effect on economic development and economic prosperity, right? So the Industrial Revolution is one of the events that had the most dramatic effect on economic development, on increase of prosperity. Like it accelerated increase in human prosperity to it at a level that nothing else in history has ever done, right? So you had the scientific revolution. The scientific revolution led to the industrial revolution. The industrial revolution led to such degrees of prosperity, uh, and the degrees of prosperity, increased degrees of prosperity, I think, has two ways of encouraging social liberalization. One, um in the one, a lesser effect and a higher effect. Okay, one lesser effect is that with more people being more well off, you have more people focusing on thinking and philosophizing and coming up with new ideas, because those uh, that line of work will actually have an income, right? In less prosperous societies, a higher percentage on of population has to actually be involved in producing stuff, farming, factory, working or stuff like that. So when you go from, like, I don't know, 1/10% of people dedicating to social activism and spreading of better ideas, when you go from that to 1% of the population, that's a significant difference. You can see in more prosperous societies, a bigger percentage of the society is actually involved in this the advertisement of better ideas, right? And
Well, it's
evolving
like
of ideas,
Maslow's
right?
hierarchy of needs. If your
Exactly,
basic needs are
something like
met,
that.
you have the luxury,
Right,
privilege to
right,
dedicate more of your time towards thinking internally and thinking externally, macro on a
right.
macro social level.
But a bigger effect is the fact that social liberalization reinforces the ideas that, because the more prosperous people become, the more life the value of life increases, right? um, and the more the forces that is improving these lives will matter. Do you know what I'm saying? And so there's a lot more capital and resources will go towards the continuous flourishing of people's lives. And also, with each individual's access to more resources increasing, each individual's power against both natural and human forces, both natural and governmental forces against us will improve. So each individual becomes more powerful relative to forces that are against it. And because each individual becomes more important, more powerful, economically more powerful, with the resources that is available to it, it will try to also become socially more liberated. So it will try to break more chains, right? So if you put power in the hands of people with financially liberating them, they will fight back against other chains around their neck as well, right? So basically, think about financial power as a weapon in the hand of an individual. So, for example, in a country where the sources of a government is mostly tax tax of money, then the individual's power relative to the government, for example, is higher. You could see the government constantly has to bend the knee to the individual because the relative power of individual to the government is very high, right? Again, there are other elements here as well. For example, natural resources have have the opposite effect because the government doesn't have to rely on the individual, because just black gold is just coming out of the ground. Right? I don't need to listen to the individual. But again, so that's also has a positive effect. The higher the GDP per capita, the more an individual can force its way around and demand to be liberated, demand to be free. There's so
True.
many different ways that this affects.
Yeah, the like sociologists like what's his name, Ronald or Robert something like that, Engelhardt, have fascinating answers to these questions.
Yeah.
So last patron question is from Rudresh. And Rajesh is asking, does Saudi Arabia deliberately do something terrible publicly when the USA needs them, like recently executing 81 people in one day, breaking modern records of executions? Is it similar to introducing some liberal policy to hide something sinister they do? What do you think, Armin?
I don't know if these 81 people execution is as a response to USA needing them. I think like this 81 execution might have been independent because it was also at a time that they were trying to ease up tensions with Iran. Like Saudi Arabia was trying to ease up tensions with Iran, but because part of this 81 people who executed were Shias,
The majority.
Majority or Shias, the easing up of tensions with Iran took a major backseat. So I don't know if they were being purposeful with the timing of it. I think like they feel threatened. I'm not sure because I think there are people from within that are challenging them, and they are feeling very, very threatened, right? Like I think there's a lot of internal struggles right now that the House of Saud is dealing with, right? I don't think, and I think they're trying to destroy that as much as possible. I think they feel like when they do these things, they feel like they are forced by desperation of just trying to remain in power, rather than having 81 person just ready, and this will like, oh, let's schedule it based on what the US is doing, right?
I think
Yeah, go on.
it's definitely extremely inconvenient to the United States because it just highlights once again it's outrageous how close our allyship is, given what we say our values are versus who we partner with, right? Like some of the worst violations of human rights, and yet we're going around lecturing other countries about their human rights records. I mean, I understand the outrage. I share it. In terms of, is it directed, is this in relation to the US or versus is this about liberalization? I'm leaning more towards the second. So I think they bring in the liberalization, quote unquote, the facade of liberalization would be more accurate, to, liberal policy to hide something sinister they do, right? And then so they bring in this fake liberalization, but at the same time, they need to remind people, like, don't get ahead of yourselves. We're still the ones in charge. We're still the authorities. And so they do something like this as a crackdown, more as a message to their domestic audience. So it kind of like feeds into itself. Like they do a horrible thing. They need to show something flashy and pretty to try to like, hey, look over here. And then at the same time, people are like, oh, wow, look at how much they're changing. But then internally, they need to be like, no, like, let me remind you about this thing in the closet right here.
Actually, that's a very important point. I don't think that this is a message to the US because I don't think they want this to have they don't have an external audience for this. I think if in a perfect world for Saudi Arabia, nobody outside of Saudi Arabia would know about these executing of 81 people. I think they would wish that the people that they fear would know about this 81 execution, and they wish that the Americans would just ignore it. I don't think this is a message to USA. I think like they wish that they could distract all these abuse of their own people. I think they could distract foreigners, including Americans, with like, hey, look, women can drive now. Well, look at Justin Bieber concert, right?
Justin
I think
Bieber.
yeah. I think like they are attempting to actually not show that. Like your the question seems to suggest that as if they're trying to show this side of themselves to the United States. I think it's the opposite. I think they're trying to as much as they can suppress the news about this. I mean, I know it's out, people know, but I don't think they want this to get much attention in foreign media. I think they want just their enemies to be scared, but distract foreigners with shiny things like concerts and women be able to drive and stuff like that. Yeah. So I don't think this is for foreign consumption. I think
Which
if
is
they want to
exactly
skip, yeah, go on.
no, this is exactly why we need to make these issues as highlighted and as massive as possible in foreign consumption.
Yes.
To, yeah.
Good point. Good point. Also, I think like if they want to be poking at the United States right now, they're using this whole Russia situation as poking at the United States. Like they're like, United States, I know you want to pivot out of the Middle East, but pivoting out of the Middle East means that we're going to be allies with people that you don't want us to be allies with. So just letting you know that you're not the only person with nukes. Okay, so like that's how they want to poke at you. This is not a way they want to poke at foreign countries because they need tourism, they need investment. This is not something that they wish people would be paying attention to.
Once again, Saudi Arabia is like a fat, petty, vindictive rich kid.
Saudi Arabia's government, we
yes,
like
the
just
regime.
yes.
Like that's
Regime,
my
yes.
mental image in my head.
Yes. No offense to Saudis,
Of course not.
especially our fellow secular and atheist Saudis. We're talking about your government, okay? So
Yes. Yeah,
yes.
no, secular Saudis doing the work there are freaking heroes. Let's be clear.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was the end of our patron and super chat questions. Holy cow, that took us for a while. So because we went so long on these, it's a reminder to people that the best way to get our attention with your questions is to become a member of our Patreon. Link in the description below. If you become a patron, you get access to all of our sexy blasphemous art, exclusive uncensored access to the sexiest blasphemous art on the internet. And you get paid priority treatment during our Q&As like today. And you can get all of this for as little as $1 a month. So consider supporting us that way. Or now that we're monetized again, you can also get our attention and we'll answer your question that way. So we have a lot of actually really good live chat questions, but we're not going to be able to answer all of them today because we've been going for so long and we do need to end soon. But you wanted to highlight this? Oh, Rudrash is just, acknowledging that Armin had a good answer. And so, of course, he's like, yes.
I just needed to highlight. I needed to highlight that, but thank you.
And Mario Luis, one of our newest patrons, is saying, thank you for answering all my questions. I'm sorry if I was too overwhelming. Next week, I will probably do it again, though. So, man, there are so many good questions, but I think you will just choose a little quick topical one. So, because I haven't talked about this yet. So, Sir KB is asking, Atheist Republic, what are your thoughts on the Will Smith Chris Rock fiasco? So Armin talked a little bit about his opinion on a recent secular jihadists Q&A. I haven't talked about it yet. I think if you don't know what happened, you're literally living under a rock. So Will Smith was 100% in the wrong. This is undebatable. You cannot assault someone because they said a joke that you don't like. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. Will Smith embarrassed the F out of himself. And there's so many different aspects to this that I could talk about. One, the joke that Chris Rock got smacked over was one of the most mild, watered down, milquetoast, nothing of a joke ever. The Oscars is so they water down and censor their comedians so much. Every little thing that they say is approved by, numerous executives. Chris Rock probably didn't even write that joke. It was probably some writer. I didn't even understand the joke. I had to kind of look it up and have it be explained to me. The reference to G.I. Jane is 20 years old. Like, it's for such an older audience. Most people are probably not even familiar with that movie. So a lot of people are, having a lot of opinions about, is it okay to make fun of Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, because she has a medical condition where she loses her hair called alopecia. There's many different kinds of alopecia. I think it's okay to make fun of someone's medical condition. Honestly, people are like, oh, this should be, off limits. That's not the case. There are people. When you go to the Oscars, you know that celebrities will be roasted. The executives hire comedians as the hosts, one, for entertainment, and to give some bare semblance of an appearance that this isn't just a party for rich people to congratulate themselves, right? Because that's all that this is. And to try to humanize them and bring them down to size a little bit, or at least give the wider audience that feeling. So the fact that Will Smith and Jada couldn't handle this just shows their extreme entitlement. In terms of the whole medical condition thing, we make fun of men who are bald all the time. Like, it's expected. Like, their baldness is treated as the butt of a joke constantly. Now, for women, it might be more sensitive because, there's such a worth or value put on women's hair in terms of their own beauty standards, right? But when people say that, they're downplaying the fact that men have that too. Men who are balding and their hair is thinning are deeply insecure about it and struggle with it greatly. So people are acting like that. We don't already don't consider people's feelings on that already. It's receiving the award for Best Actor, even after he assaulted the host on live television. That didn't completely surprise me because, the awards are still chosen. Who wins is chosen well in advance. So, and it's on the basis of their performance, right? Not their behavior at any given time. So I wasn't completely surprised that he still won the award. I'm surprised that he was allowed to sit there. I'm surprised that he was allowed to give his insane, unhinged tangent of an acceptance speech, and that people still gave him a standing ovation for it. I'm not someone who usually has a bad taste in my mouth over the Hollywood elites. Like, there's a certain brand of person who's constantly ranting about the Hollywood elites, and I'm not that person. But this event really put a really sour taste in my mouth, and it really was a reflection of some of the worst impulses of the Hollywood elite. I think that it is not a reflection of Chris Rock specifically. I think it was, and Will basically said this in his acceptance speech, is more to do with the fact that the abuse and mockery he faces from the internet in general because of his relationship with Jada and their open relationship and how she has sex with other men. He has sex with other women, but he receives much more abusive behavior and mockery towards it than she does. I think Jada is potentially an emotionally abusive person. I think that Will Smith is in dire need of therapy and intervention, someone who will really keep it real for him. And it seems like they're just the Smith family is doubling down on this event, which is shameful. And it'll be really interesting to see how this goes, like what happens in the aftermath of this and if this affects his career at all. It was just a shit show. Now, I will say it does make for good television. And this is the most interesting thing that has happened to the Oscars for the past 10 years, whose ratings have been declining for a long time. And no one cares. No one, like, few people tune in. It's losing its importance. So for them, this is going to be a huge boost and very much to their benefit of the Academy. It was. Will Smith just seems like a deeply unwell man. And it's so stupid because if Will Smith wanted people to keep Jada's name out of their mouth, this is the worst thing that he could have done, because people are saying, oh, your wife's bald head, that's off limits for you, Will Smith. I'm going to come for your throat with the most disrespectful memes towards your wife and your marriage that I have ever seen. My friend Mujahid has been sending me absolutely savage memes mocking in the most disrespectful way the Smith family in every way, shape, or form. Like, if you thought it was so brutal before, Will, you opened up the gates of hell on yourself. It is next level brutality now. It's like, bow! Oh, you want another? Bow! Thank you. You wanted a bow! Like, it's... So they're ultimately going to get exactly the opposite of the attention that they wanted. There were a lot of people, millions of people who did not know about the intricacies of Will's and Jada's marriage before. The messiness, the intense messiness. They sure as hell know now.
Okay. That was a lot. Okay, that was interesting. Thank you for that, Susanna. We should clip this part early because it might get irrelevant. But okay, cool. It seemed like you had a lot you were waiting for somebody to ask this because you wanted to put that on.
Oh, I could go on. I could go on.
Okay, good.
Oh my God. So I was watching the comedian Andrew Schultz do a roast of Will Smith last night, and he said something along the lines of like Will Smith slapped Chris Rock with an open palm, much like the relation. No, but he wanted it to be closed, much like his marriage with Jada Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a lot of jokes. All right, is there any other live chat questions that you want to highlight before we go? Because we passed 3 hours already.
I know, we've been going for a long time. Okay, this is just hilarious to me. Asian American saying, would y'all return to the pharaonic ritual of annual masturbation into the Nile River as an offering to the god Sobek, Lord of Semen? Gladly.
Wait, you would?
Well, I don't produce semen, so I can't. But if I could,
yeah. But I read. Okay, I don't know if I want to say that, but I read annual masturbation. I read it something else. I think you know what I mean. I was like, wait a minute. I'm not gonna read it the way I thought because I think YouTube didn't like that.
Okay.
I read annual a different way. You don't know what I'm saying?
Oh. That makes sense.
I'm like, wait a minute. What did they like? This just seemed a lot more weird. I just imagine a whole bunch of people doing the most
along
bizarre
the banks
ritual.
of the Nile everywhere.
Like, what did they use to do this? Like, that's insane. Like, like what a weird ritual. No, but yes, I would be for. I just don't know if I could do that. Like, would everybody be watching everybody? Because I don't think that's not gonna make me. That's not gonna be pleasant. And then I have to watch.
Don't do that kind of thing in public.
No, I mean I have to watch guys. I don't know if you've seen the average person doing that. Okay, it's not a pleasant sight.
True.
So just imagine go to the river and you're just watching all these people do it. Like, would you be in the mood to do anything like that? Also, would you have I need Wi-Fi. I need to select something to be able to I need to watch something to be able to do that. I can't just
I need
watch
certain
all these
content to get.
I need certain content because you have all these ugly old and fat people around you all doing this, like you're not gonna be in the mood to be able to perform, right? Yeah. Anyways.
Hilarious. Okay,
Mhm.
guys. Well, that wraps up this stream for today. Sorry if we didn't answer your live chat questions, but like I said before, if you want to make sure to get your questions answered, you
Oh,
can use
what?
the super
One
chat
question.
or
I have a short answer to this
oh
one.
man.
Somebody's saying atheists don't have enough children. How will they survive? We're coming after religious people's children. Okay? We're coming after
By
like
changing their minds intellectually.
yes. So religious people, hide your kids because we're coming for them. But yes, that's how we're gonna
Please
yes,
make
I
sure to like this
mhm,
video. If you made it through 3 hours through this and you didn't like it, or if you didn't subscribe, why not? Because we do this
mhm,
every week. And if you like it, it helps us out a lot.
mhm.
And because we have been deprioritized. And not only that, but we have the news show in 2 days. And we have a juicy news show, like a very juicy news show this week. Like so much good. No, I mean not necessarily good news, but like juicy news. So much good juicy news that we couldn't even cover it all this week. We have to bump some of it to next week. So look forward to that. Tune into that same time, 2 days from now, and we'll
Yes.
see you then.
So like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification, and leave a comment after the stream is over, and share it with share our channel with anybody that might be interested. And if you notice, none of this costs you anything. Okay, so I know a lot of people are supporting us financially, and we're very grateful. But you don't need to support us financially, especially if you're struggling financially. Do not support us financially, please. Just like the video. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps our channel grow. So please take half a second to just like this video. And we spent like 3 hours making content for you, so I think that the like will be very well deserved. Okay, so please like the video. Thank you very much. All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye. See you in 2 days. Oh, we got
Oh
a
my
super chat. We
gosh.
have to go. Yeah, super sticker.
What is it? Let me pull it up. Just a second.
It's a sunglasses. It's a emoticon sunglasses. Thank you, Secular Sekai, for the
Nice.
$1 super sticker. Okay, bye.
Bye.